What is up, everybody? Welcome to the gentlemen and I guess now the gentlewomen of the Corax. Today we'll be talking about the creatures of the deep, and we'll be doing a tier list. So basically, we have S, A, B, C, D, and F tiers, and we have 36 deep sea taxa. These are all extant, these are all alive today, and we're going to be ranking them based on whatever factors we choose. The key thing with this is that we can only limit ourselves to six taxa per group. So there might be some animals that get contested, but we have to limit it to six per group. But yeah, with that said, let's talk about the deep sea in general. These are the water columns. And for our list, when we're talking about deep sea, we're talking about the lower mesopelagic zone and below. So anything from there and below we considered for this list. And the reason for that is the mesopelagic is when light really begins to diminish. So we call that the twilight zone, and from there you get some really bizarre taxa that form trying to survive in these ecosystems. So Meaghan, why do animals get so weird from the mesopelagic and below?
So, because the environment is so extreme, you have things like extreme pressure, extreme colds, just the darkness in general. They're forced to evolve some really weird adaptations. Like, for instance, bioluminescence, about 75 to 80% of animals in the deep sea create their own light. So people think it's just pure darkness down there, but when you actually think about that many creatures making their own light, it can be a bit of a firework display. Um, and a lot of animals have developed to be gelatinous to basically deal with the extreme pressure. So they're not basically getting crushed. There's a lot of different colorations that have become pretty extreme. Like we have things like ultra black animals that pretty much absorb all the light, so they're basically invisible. There's, things that live in the water column that are, doing things like ram feeding, and then you have things that are more benthic that are doing some really weird things and getting nutrients from some pretty odd areas, doing like chemosynthesis and things like that. Weird appendages, just, it's just really just a really extreme environment, so things needed to get really weird.
Mhm. And how much of the faunas are actually known from the deep sea compared to what could actually be out there?
There is no way of knowing that. Pretty much every time you go down and do like some type of deep sea exploration, which is really hard to do because it's very expensive and you need some pretty amazing technologies. Pretty much almost every time they find something new. So there's really no way to know exactly how much is down there at this
Yeah.
point. I mean, it's the same way in shallow water environments, and now like with looking at molecular data, it even is getting, more, you know, those numbers are growing.
hmm And we should also talk about why it is so difficult to explore the deep sea. So, what are some of the challenges that have been faced when trying to look into these ecosystems?
Humans can't breathe underwater.
Yeah.
That's one. Just the pressure, developing technology that can basically survive under the pressure so we're not getting completely crushed and our gear isn't getting crushed, such as cameras being able to film things. Also, we need light to see things, but introducing light and a lot of mechanisms such as machinery is going to scare things away and change behaviors. So we really need to come up with ways that we can observe things without, you know, um, changing behaviors too much, which is really difficult, if not impossible.
hmm That makes sense. Yeah. So when we talk about these weird animals, we're going to take a look at a whole different, like a huge variety of different things. We have some invertebrates on the list. We have some fish, some bony fish. We have some mammals. We have some sharks, So it's going to be a really, really cool list. And again, we have 36 animals. So I say that we get right into it. What do you guys think?
It's great.
All right, so here is our tier list. And our first animal that we have is the giant oarfish. So this is a really, really weird one. Cole, I think you did some research on this one.
The king of herrings is kind of what it's called in a lot of traditional as like listed as a common name in scientific description back in like the 1700s, which I think is cool. It sounds cool. There was some I think some kind of ancestral folklore in Scandinavia, Northern Europe, that they actually like guided schools of herrings around. So that's probably not true, but it's cool to it's a cool name. So the lampriforms, which are a group of um, generally rare but all mostly deep sea fish, that mesopelagic fish that are they kind of share that laterally compressed body shape. They're very flat, and most of them are kind of elongated. They don't have scales. They they're silver in color. They silver blue with big red uh, dorsal fins and that kind of big crest you see up on the head. Their skeletons are actually mostly cartilaginous with some hyperossified elements. So I thought that was interesting. They're as far as we can tell, they've been found all over the globe. They've been found as far north as like northern off the north shore of Alaska, as far south as like off the coast of like Tierra del Fuego. They swim around with their mouths open and kind of wait for something to wander in there. Krill, small fish, small squid mostly. They are they're kind of observed swimming in two forms. They're kind of swimming that they're very anguiform form where they undulate their whole body, but they're also they've been observed doing that, but they're most consistently observed in a vertical orientation. The only oarfish that I know that we've actually observed like that didn't just kind of get disoriented and wander to the surface was it was seen in the mesopelagic by the deep sea camera, and it was oriented toward the column there, so straight up and out of the water column. A lot of the videos you see are of ones that do wander up or in that same kind of perfectly straight up orientation.
So why do they do that? Like that, they're just sitting there vertically. Is it a little bit like sperm whales? Is that a resting state for them?
Maybe
No one
I
knows.
not very well. I mean, we don't know that much about oarfish. Like they're extremely rare animals. Most of them are
Gosh,
like again, they've only been observed in their like what should be their natural setting like once. So
holy crap.
they're they're very uncommon. Um, I'd imagine it's for like resting.
I'd
And
agree with you. They expend a lot less energy when they're in that like vertical column position. Also, usually when we're seeing deep sea animals up at the surface, it usually means they're not doing so hot. Um, so a lot of times when you see deep sea animals up at the surface, it's because they're probably either sick or dying.
They're exhibiting like you can't assume the kind of behavior they're currently exhibiting as well.
and these are also the longest ray-finned fish alive today, correct?
They get up to like the biggest confirmed are 26 feet. There was a sighting of one in the 60s by a bunch of pretty experienced uh, marine biologists on a research vessel. They were on a vessel, so they had a measuring stick. They claimed up like 40 to 50 feet. That's unconfirmed. Um, Maybe a bit of an overestimate, but they do get very large.
Mm.
Holy cow. That's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're believed to be responsible for some of the like old sea serpent myths and things like that. Yeah, they are so strange. They have those giant crests. And there was also some belief they're also called earthquake fish because they've been observed kind of surfacing before and after earthquakes, which could just be like a response to, a lot of animals respond to extreme, like weather conditions, like when hurricanes happen, for instance, sharks will move out of that environment into deeper water. So that could be kind of something that's responsible for that earthquake phenomenon.
Hmm.
They're specifically in Japanese mythology. They're like the harbinger.
Yeah.
Dang, dude. Well, Oarfish had an absolute grip on my childhood mind. Like like nothing compares. I think without a doubt, just on its scarcity and its how unusual it is, and that it should be like ties to your region like off the bat. I don't think there's any question, unless someone disagrees. Unless we have an Oarfish hater, in which case, like, screw you. I don't care. I,
Another interesting thing about the oarfish too is this was brought up actually in the in Russell Engelman, who I've had on my Elasmocast podcast before. He talked about in regards to his 2023 publication on his metrics for shrinking Dunkleosteus, which was one of my personal all-time favorite childhood extinct animals. One of the big things that he looked at was something called an OOL, which is your orbit opercular length. So that's basically the interiormost part of the eye, all the way till the back of the head. And for the most part, with non-tetrapodal fish, you're looking at fairly consistent levels between the head size and the body size. And that's how he was able to extrapolate estimates from Dunkleosteus and say that, look, this was not a 30-foot animal that we believed it to be. And it became, massively shrunk. But one of the outliers in his research was the oarfish, because the oarfish has such a small head because of its elongated body. So proportionally, it is very different than almost everything else. So if you look at one of his figures on there where he extrapolates all of these metrics and you see a somewhat clear linear line, but then you see these massive outliers, those are the oarfish right there.
Hmm.
So I found that really interesting. And Jared, another outlier would have been Zephyctinus too, which you're familiar with.
oh yeah, I know Xiphactinus very well. I'm interested. What are Oarfish related to? Like who? Where do they sit taxonomically?
So when it performs, I think the most famous relative that I saw in my brief kind of review their taxonomy is the opa. You know what that is? It's like this kind of big
Mhm.
fish. That's kind of the most famous of their like close kin. Um, Megan, do you have any more like kind of general phylogenetic
And
questions?
also, cutlass fish is another one. They're another fish that you see doing that like vertical kind of positioning in the water. They're
Okay.
also very, very like shiny like that as well. You see cutlass fish though more in like these schools that they look like little fields of tinsel, which I really love. Opas are really interesting though because they're warm-blooded.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's interesting. That's cool. Cutlass fish.
But I got a couple more. So there's like kind of two genera genera of oarfish. Both each one's got one species. The main one, Regalicus, has kind of got like maybe two, but I think most people treat it as one. But the other species, Agrostictes parkeri, or the other genus species, Agrostictes parkeri, is not nearly as big, like a 10-footer, but and it's also even rare. I think only a half dozen have ever been actually observed, like dead or alive. And it's some of the researchers handling it reported that it produced an electric shock.
Hmm,
Interesting.
I heard that.
So
Shocking.
That's a good one.
and then they did the other good bit of oarfish research that they trying to get an idea of kind of their life history. They actually created some oarfish fry in a lab via artificial insemination, and kind of studied what an oarfish looked like. They didn't live very long, but they're giant. They've got those giant
Yeah,
rays.
Blackwater photography has really helped kind of understand what like deep sea larval and juvenile animals look like. And a lot of times it's incredibly different from their adult variations, and to the point that they've been described as completely different species. So, and oarfish are very, very beautiful, as they are when they're adults.
Top tier fish. Top tier fish.
They're going S tier. What are you guys thinking?
They're good. There's a lot of cool fish on this list. So,
Yeah, I was about to say we got 36. It's gonna take us.
We're already filling it with an S tier.
yeah, there's a lot of cool fish though, especially. I mean, not that this is all about fish, but you know.
I don't see a non-fish going S tier. I'm just saying that. I'm not an invert person, so I can't appreciate them fully, but
Dude, glass sponges. We got them up in time. I'm not an invert person either, except for echinoids. I love echinoids, but glass
Yeah.
sponges, genuine aliens, dude. Like, have you ever heard the whole thing of carbon-based life versus silica-based life? Like, is that ever interested in you? Like,
Mhm.
the valencies of carbon and silica are similar, right? So there's always been this thought that if you're looking for life on exoplanets, you can look for silica-based compounds as well. And glass sponges, I mean, they're still carbon-based life, but they have silica skeletons, which is crazy. Their sponges are literally like actually compositionally like glass. It's as if they're
They
man-made.
feel like glass too. When I've held them, they're sharp and like
Yeah,
they're heavy. They look like these really like almost like spider silk, but they feel like spun glass.
yeah, they look man,
Incredible.
and they have a nice fossil record. They need really clean water because they can't. They're so simple compared to other poriferans that, if you want to call them a poriferan, that they can't filter water the same way as other sponges do. So they need like the cleanest water possible, and so they're rare. But they make these huge colonies, especially in the fossil record. They make these giant colonies, and yeah, no, they're really dope. And apparently they can live for like 15,000 years. I didn't know that. So
wow.
Jurassic roots were dominated by giant glass sponges,
what were dominated?
right? Jurassic reefs.
Jurassic reefs.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Have you ever read Otherlands by Thomas Halliday?
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yes. That's what I discovered from them.
So are we thinking S tier for the giant oarfish, our
Yeah,
first one?
I think so.
Mm.
I think so. I'm an
Yeah.
oarfish fan.
Yeah, I like them. They're good.
They're good, but we have a good list. Not
We
ex
have a really good list, so it's hard to kind of put them somewhere right now.
I'm a
we can
simpleton.
put them in S and then see if anything contends them.
I'm
Okay.
right? So I don't know that many of these, but I do know oarfish. I've
Hmm.
known since I was a kid, dude. I love oarfish. I don't think I'm gonna get mine changed.
All right, sounds good. So we have the oarfish in our S tier. Now let's go to the humpback anglerfish.
Mm.
Brother. Ugh. Ugly. Not S tier. I'm just kidding. I'm sure there's something interesting about these. I don't know anything about them.
Oh, they're beautiful. They feel like wet dumplings when you hold their specimens. Like
Brother. Ugh.
I don't know if that makes them any more appealing to you, but
I don't plan on
Hey,
eating.
could you tell us a little bit about the humpback anglerfish?
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure most people who know anything about anglerfish, they know that they display extreme sexual dimorphism. So the females are much larger than the males. The males are itty bitty. People usually think of anglerfish the as far as reproduction goes, that the males are parasitic. However, this group of anglerfish, they're not technically considered parasites because the males will detach for a period of time. So they'll attach onto the female basically, and that's how they get all their nutrients that way. And but as far as many groups of anglerfish, usually the male will bite onto the female, and the inside of the male anglerfish will basically degenerate to the point that all their organs are gone, and they're just kind of a bag of testes, total freeloaders. But as far as Melanocetus goes, the males will detach. I mean, usually what's interesting, another thing that's interesting about anglerfish is a lot of times for the parasitic males, they'll attach to the females before they're even sexually mature. And the female anglerfish are the ones that have that lure. The lure, it's called an elysium. The bulb on the end is called the esca, and that's the esca's bioluminescent. It's actually a fin spine that just got really weird. Fish have done some really weird things with their fins, and one of them is turning it into a lure. Um, which is just it's just so weird. Fish have gone really crazy with what they've done with modifying their fins. Um, but one analogy that we talk about in our ichthyology collection at the Museum of Comparative Zoology, that males finding a female is basically like being in a football stadium in complete darkness and like on a blind date trying to find this female. But the males have incredibly developed olfactory systems, so they're actually sniffing her out. Um, and because it's so hard to find a female in the ocean, that's why they do exhibit a lot of this parasite behavior, again, which is not technically done in this group of anglerfish, but it's very common and kind of the famous fact about whenever you ask people about male and female anglerfish, they're always like, "Oh, well, they fuse." It's like, yes, but not all groups do, but yes.
Hmm.
In regards to the anglerfish, I think it definitely gets points for having those extremely derived adaptations. That I didn't know that its lure was adapted from a fin. Actually, never even thought about what that structure came from. So that makes sense that it comes from a fin.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do have a little bit of a beef with the anglerfish though, because when I was little and I watched Finding Nemo, I thought that these things were so massive and I was so fascinated by them. And then when I was little and I looked up how big these things actually were, I was so disappointed at how small they were. And part of me hasn't healed since then.
That's how a lot of things are, I feel like in the deep sea, where people think that they're a lot bigger than they are, but that's because they don't have like any real size comparisons. It's not like people who are studying the deep sea are swimming around with scale bars.
Hmm.
There are some really big anglerfish out there, and like by really big, I mean like, a couple, like a foot and a half kind of across. The Pacific football fish is a pretty large anglerfish. If you play Animal Crossing, that's the anglerfish that's in that game. But most of them, like you said, they are very small.
So what's
Yeah.
the size of this one?
It's only like that big.
Oh dang!
It's not that
You're right.
little. I
It's
mean,
literally a dumpling. It's like holding a
it's
dumpling.
a dumpling, yeah, and they're squishy. Um,
I
It does
think
look like it can swallow massive proportionally prey.
they have very stretchy stomachs and they're very gelatinous. Their skin is very, very smooth. Um, Melanocetidae, which is the family they're in, means black whale. And I think that's probably because they have that big whale mouth,
Hmm.
which there are a lot of deep sea animals that have those kind of big, gaping mouths. Everything is in extremes, you get these little tiny mouths or you get these giant gaping mouths.
Yeah.
they look like a head with fins. There's
I say that all the time. Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
that's crazy.
Just a
Well,
swimming head.
I think they should be in an upper tier, but I don't know if they get S tier yet. I gotta like sit and think about
If
that.
it weren't for Finding Nemo, it would get an S tier for me, but because of that, I'm putting it down to B tier.
That's Finding Nemo's fault. Like that was,
I
completely
was an
silly. Like
impressionable
they
young
put them in
child, though.
shallow water. They made them huge. They made them like really active, like
Mm.
predators where really they're mostly a sit and wait predator. Like you don't see any anglerfish chasing,
Well,
Nemo and Dory around.
I am like the rest of the uneducated, unwashed masses, and I think big things equals cool. So, right. So, it is awesome. I like its derived characters. That's really cool. and that's why it definitely deserves a high C. I think B is a little harsh, but I don't think S. I
Yeah,
don't think,
that's harsh.
yeah, B's a bit harsh. I'm
Get
gonna
Finding Nemo out of your head. That's don't
I was
blame.
an
It's
impressionable
not
young
her
child.
fault.
So what would you put it as?
I'm gonna guess A.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I haven't seen the rest of the animals, but I think A is safe. I think it's a low end A tier. If
Hmm.
I'm gonna make a assessment based on
What do
some
you
of
think, Cole?
Well, it's an anglerfish, so I think it's so classic that it's got to be high up. So I'm gonna go A. So
A?
emblematic of everything.
Yeah, I agree. They're so charismatic. They're like kind of, a mascot of the deep ocean. So
that's
you
true.
can't think deep sea without thinking anglerfish.
I suppose I'll concede.
I think the S tier stuff needs to be stuff that's surprising. Like stuff that's too classic. These mascots of the ocean, they're like awesome. They're classics, and that's why they're cool and they get a high tier. But the S tier stuff just needs to be like, I don't know, in my opinion. S tier stuff should be surprising.
Come on.
This one I think is an S tier. I loved these
Mm.
as a kid. So
Yes,
Yeah.
these are the Pacific viper fish.
I might have to eat my words because these are classic, but I think they're so cool, and they do remind me a wee bit of Encodus, which is my little Cretaceous
Yeah.
that I
Hmm.
like so much.
Yeah, and Codus is affectionately known as the saber-tooth herring by
Yeah.
Hmm.
Cretaceous collectors. Yeah,
What
and
are what?
I could see that. Look at those fangs on there.
Their teeth are so big they don't actually fit in their mouth. They kind of just rest right in front of them. They have like little kind of spaces for their teeth to fit in because they are so big they can't fit in their mouths.
You know, functionally, I've been thinking about this because I've always thought about saber-toothed cats, for example, right? They have those extremely large canines. It's like, how do you even use those if you can't open your mouth large enough? And so, functionally, what is the point of a viperfish to have these extremely thin, delicate-looking, enormous teeth? It doesn't. I don't know how big they can open their mouths, but I just have trouble understanding what such
Mm.
large, delicate teeth can be useful for.
They're not as delicate as you think. They're actually incredibly solid, and they
Really.
can use them to. They're high impact feeders, so they actually use those for stabbing. And they have there's a vertebra right behind their head that is actually used as like a shock absorber, like an airbag, basically. So they can be like swimming really fast and impale something and basically have that as a shock absorber, kind of like a woodpecker has when they're slamming its knife face against a tree. Um,
So I'm gonna guess its jaws then are a vertebral. It can like push these jaws out, and then those teeth would be facing outwards if it's stabbing things, or is it just biting down on them like clamps?
their mouth can open incredibly wide. Like they have a very large gape.
And so thus those teeth face directly out, and they can use them as spears.
Yep.
Dang. Okay, that makes more sense. That's actually interesting. That's a
Yeah.
cool question that like using a mouth for something besides just clamping down. That's really cool. It's just shooting its like physically outwards from its face. It's shooting its teeth out. Not, but like you know what I mean. Like it has them outwards and
Yep.
stabbing. I like that. S
Yeah,
tier.
their jaws are completely hinged and loose, so they can fit really large prey in their mouths. Yeah, and they're also bioluminescents. They have ventral photophores and ventrolateral photophores, so
Mhm.
which is great for like counter illumination. I know we talk a lot about like counter shading in the shallow water, like great white sharks, for instance, but in the deep sea, a lot of bioluminescence, the function is for counter illumination. Basically, it makes it so when something looks up, it blends in with any ambient light that might be there. And then if something looks down, it blends in with basically the darkness below.
Mhm. And
And they
I've
have really large stomachs. They can go days without food. So,
I've
yeah,
heard that pound for pound, they are one of the most ferocious animals of the deep sea.
that has been said. And they are not very large. If we're saying that large equals cool, I don't know. Because, I mean, these guys are only about this big.
That's okay. Piranhas are small and they're cool too. They're
They
cool.
are cool.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting, like things like the coelacanth, right? So coelacanths have been around forever and ever and ever, and that's cool in its own way. But when you have an animal that is unique to our quote unquote geologically modern times, that's interesting to me. And even in the Cretaceous, you didn't really get that many fish that had vertical jaws like that. That can they're basically just restricted to clamping to really propel one's mouth out like that. That's a Cenozoic phenomenon. That's it doesn't go that far back, and I think that's cool. That deserves credit.
A lot of times when these specimens get caught, their heads will nearly be popping off because that like jaw is so hinged, there isn't a strong attachment from their like neck to their spine. So a lot of times, I mean, a lot of times when we're catching deep sea creatures like in a trawl or something like that, they usually come up pretty mangled because you've got all these animals flopping around on top of each other, sometimes eating one another. They get pretty torn up, but for these guys, a lot of times their heads will they're like nearly headless when they come up.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm going S tier on the Pacific viperfish. I'm going S tier.
It's gonna be all fish up there, but that's gonna be my fault because I got all the cool fish facts.
What do you
I,
guys think?
I hesitantly say S tier. I feel like it might have to move at some point because S tier is filling up already. Like we can only have six per layer, right?
Yep.
I don't think there's going to be a fish I'm a big hater on. So
Yeah. I have one spot, one fish that has to go in S tier because I will convince you, trust me.
I
So
have
okay.
we
one.
need to save a spot for this one fish.
What do you think, Cole?
Not impressed.
You're not impressed?
Thinking B tier, dude.
B
B.
tier. Whoa, hot take. Why?
Um,
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking more about like I'm looking here. I'm seeing a sperm whale. I'm seeing a goblin shark. I'm seeing a
No
gulper.
spoiling.
Uh, I don't know. I think there's just very extremely stiff competition for um. Well, those teeth are kind of cool.
I think there's a
Well,
cool consensus that we have. It is
I,
cool. Like that's our consensus. So I think it's safe in A tier as well.
we can put in S tier and demote it if we need to.
Yes. Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Let me.
And by the way, I'm going to be extremely biased as to for anything that has a fossil record, especially into the Cretaceous. Like I'm going to be saving spots for that. I'm looking forward to talking about some of the sharks. So.
Yeah, I'm excited for the sharks too.
Oh,
Me too.
really?
All right, so let's see what our next one is. We have the black dragonfish.
Mm, those are cool.
It's so sinewy. It looks like a mob out of some horror game. That's awesome. I don't know anything about these either, so I'm just gonna have to sit back and twiddle my thumbs.
One thing that's cool about these guys, when you think about a lot of bioluminescence, they'll be ventrally located or, on a lure that's on top of their head. So a lot of animals can't necessarily see their bioluminescent lures or photophores well. These guys, because they're dangling from a chin barbel, they actually can see them. So they can use it more as like active hunting. They're not just like sit or wait predators. They can swim around while using these lures a little because like I said, sometimes these are dangling really, really far for some of these dragonfish. So
Yeah,
that's kind of one leg up they have.
I just noticed that for people listening, this is basically I'm gonna try and describe it in layman's terms because I'm viewing this as a layman myself. It's like it's as if it's a long eel with a big head and lots of big sharp teeth, and then dangling below its chin is this long tentacle like apparatus that has the lure at the end. So it's kind of it's literally just a reverse anglerfish. Like anglerfish are short, fat, and they have the lure at the top. This thing is long and thin with the lure at the bottom of its mouth. And yeah, also big viper-like teeth. That's awesome.
That should be the new common name, reverse anglerfish.
Yeah,
There
literally.
are long and thin anglerfish, though. One of my favorite anglerfish is pretty stretched out. The other cool thing about these guys and gals is they're sexually dimorphic, pretty extremely. Like the females are black with six stripes, and the males are more brown, and they don't have those large canine teeth that the females have.
Hmm.
So you are, just like anglerfish, you are seeing some type of extreme sexual dimorphism.
Are they
Mhm.
related?
No,
No.
no,
So
no.
it's totally convergent that they developed this lure. That's
Yep,
interesting.
Aren't
Black.
these in the same order as the viperfish, though?
yep,
Hmm.
they are. Um, so bioluminescence has evolved upwards of 40 times independently, both in the ocean and on land. So just that alone, you can really see how vital it is as an adaptation. And it's in all different ways. Sometimes, like there's the where the photophores are is highly variable in different animals.
Hmm.
Hey, Ben, can you minimize the window so I can see the tiers, what tiers we're working with? This is my first.
Yeah, that I agree.
So I'm thinking, all right, so we have S tiers at the top, A tier below, B tier below, C tier below, D tier below, and the lowest is F tier. I'm thinking this thing is maybe B tier. Like it's
I think a
cool.
solid A tier on this one.
They're
A
really cool. One thing I will add to make them even cooler, their larval state, their eyes are actually like on dangly tendrils. There's a few things in the deep sea that kind of do that in their larval state. Like I think some gonos no cyclothone, so like bristlemouths, they'll have their eyes on these really long stalks when they're young, and then as they grow, they like kind of recede into their head.
Do we have bristle mouths coming up?
We, I don't believe we have any
I don't
So
think
is
so.
this our only
bristlemouths.
tentacle-eyed little guy that we have on here? Because if so, I agree. A tier is good. Well, it's pretty awesome.
That is really cool.
I'm thinking A.
Yeah.
Would
Hey,
you guys agree?
I could put him in A.
see, this is what happens when you give a bunch of marine-oriented people the job of ranking things. We don't think anything sucks. Like, it's
No, no, I mean nothing sucks.
yeah, it's the
Would you
problem.
agree, Cole?
Yeah, I actually like this guy better than the dragonfish. I think, yeah, I think A is good.
All
Interesting.
right.
All right. All right. So our next one is the legend itself, the blobfish.
Boo! I eat my words right at the bottom.
Whatever.
I hate this guy. No, I'm just kidding. He's kind of cool looking. He's kind of robust looking.
They look
So
like
this is
normal
what it.
fish when they're at depth, you know? Like everyone kind of loves them because of the silly photo that was taken in 2003, and yeah, that makes them look super charismatic, but when they're at depth, they just look like a normal fish.
Yeah, that does look like a normal fish, but it looks a little hairy. What are those things on his face?
Yeah, they do have like kind of like little skin appendages that make them look kind of furry.
Yeah, what are those for? Do you
I'm
know?
not sure what the use of those is actually.
Or
They
they,
could be sensory, possibly. I'm not sure of the rigidity of them though.
Mm.
Blobfish. I feel like everyone knows a blobfish, but no one knows. Oh my god, how do you say this? Cyclodes microporos. Cyclodes microporos. There you go. I know it's a Latin name.
And this thing
Hmm.
looks very different in the water than in that iconic meme because of the pressure changes when it gets brought up, when it's dredged up, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even pink. Like here it is underwater. It's gray and white. It's gray with a white face, little tendrils on its head. But in the photo, yeah, it's just this ugly, boogery looking pink thing. It looks like an organ
Yeah.
with eyes.
Or like melted bubble gum.
Yeah. Well, I
Mhm.
think since there's not that much special about it, except for
The
except
meme.
for like biologically, there's not that much that's special about it. It should be in the lower two. I don't know which
We
one.
don't know that much about it. It's only been observed a few times,
Oh,
and I mean, it could be awesome, it could be super cool, but as far as, looking at it, and it doesn't have any super weird appendages. It's, those pectoral fins are pretty cool, but.
It gets points for rarity. I don't think it should be in the bottommost tier. I think it should be a little higher than the
I
bottommost.
think D tier because, and I say that because of
E?
the cultural D.
Oh, okay, okay.
Period. Because of the cultural significance of it is so strong that I feel like even though it's not spectacular, it can't be the lowest.
Yeah, I agree.
It certainly has gotten people probably more interested in the deep sea. I mean, it's whether we like it or not, it has become like this mascot in a way for the deep sea, just because that photo has made it so iconic. Just the 20th anniversary of it was that photo was last year.
Is
It's,
that something like celebrated in the deep sea biology community?
Yeah. So
it's one of the few fish we don't have in our ichthyology collection and at Harvard. And whenever I give tours, people are always asking about seeing it. And I'm just like, oh, there's so many more cool fish. God.
all right, so I guess D tier it is.
D tier.
Yeah, I put it in D.
Boom.
Sorry, Blob.
So let's go. Now this is a cool one. The blunt nose.
Ew.
One nose six gill.
Yeah. These things can get pretty large too. So these we're looking at like at the upwards end, like 20 plus feet, which I find interesting. But the coolest thing about the cow sharks, which would be the order Hexanchiforms, specifically the hexanchoids, which would include the six gills, the seven gills, would be their dentition. So they have a very heterodont style dentition, and the interesting ones would be the lower jaw, where you basically have these saw blades that line it up. That you have these cones, you have the primary cone or the acrocone, and then they shrink down in diminishing size. And yeah, I just think of these things as like a mouthful of saws.
They have crazy teeth. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Like I feel anybody who doesn't know, I don't know if you have like a picture of one of these teeth on hand, but
I have a fossil of one.
anybody who doesn't know about Hexanchus teeth, like I implore you to Google it. Their teeth look nuts. Does not look like a shark tooth, but yeah, it looks like if you have a fossil of one
If I
right here,
can.
yeah, there you go.
That
Yeah.
one looks like Notorhynchus to me,
Yeah, this is
which
an
is very
Odorhynchus,
yeah,
but close, close
yeah.
enough. They also have really cool symphysial teeth. Like
Mhm.
one of my like bucket list fossils is like Hank's Angus, like symphysial tooth, which
Yeah.
is right in the center, as
Yeah,
you
so
know.
there's two different forms on the symphysial ones. You within hexanchoids, you can have them where they kind of like splay out on both sides, but then you also have some that have a median cusp or cone, depending how you want to call it, down the center. And yeah, they're within the fossil community, probably one of the most sought after shark teeth. There's like a whole like a niche of um like cult collectors that just love cow sharks and they collect those, and then the symphesials are like their holy grail teeth.
And
Specifically the lower symphesials. The upper you would have parasymphesials, which would be towards a symphysis, but not directly on it, like the lower.
and
And
in
not a lot of sharks have symphysial teeth. Like there have been
Recent,
instances
yeah.
where like tiger sharks will sometimes have them, but cow sharks are usually the ones who kind of are most known for having them, which they just have one of some of the coolest teeth, though, I think, of all sharks.
For
I
sure,
think
yeah.
the shark that beats it, I would say, just in even in the fossil record, like in terms of just how interesting their teeth are, is Tychodus. But we unfortunately
Mm,
those today. Tychodus is so weird. But
so weird.
like anyone who like knows me has just heard that and like, of course he brought up Tychodus, whatever. Anyway,
I
so
agree.
what was I gonna say? Well, what's interesting is that in the Cenozoic stuff, even in the Cenozoic stratas, Hexanchus teeth are quite uncommon. I wouldn't say they're the rarest teeth in the world by any means, but they are quite uncommon. In Cretaceous stuff, they get even rarer. And the fact that you have this tooth form that has persisted for at least like 66 million years, because I know of actually 80 million years. I know of a Campanian Hexanchus find.
I've
So,
had a Cenomanian age Hexanchus tooth before from Russia.
oh,
So
That's
yeah,
crazy.
they go back. These are
So
Cretaceous.
95 million years. That's nuts. The same tooth form for almost 100 million years, maybe
Yeah.
more. Who knows?
And
That's
if you're talking about the overall hexanchoid tooth form, you're talking early Jurassic.
that's nuts.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean they've said that there's Jurassic Hexanchus like Hexanchus art I think Arzoensis, but in reality that is just a taxa that way back when they described a lot of these extinct forms based on extant genera, but in reality that wouldn't have been a true Hexanchus. But even
Mhm.
still, Hexanchus as a genus would have been very long-ranging. We're looking at a genus that's been around since the Cretaceous and still alive today.
Mhm.
I think
What?
they're
Yeah. There's
definitely in.
so few extant species too. I think like as far as cow sharks go, there was like 37 like actually described species, and there's
Mhm.
only like five that are still alive today.
Yeah, and these were very prominent animals too. They're like for an average collector, maybe they'll be uncommon, especially in certain localities. So like I know in South Carolina, they tend to be a rare find, but for the most part, in Calvert Cliffs, Maryland,
Yeah, in Maryland.
you'll find, yeah, your hexanchoid teeth, mostly Notarincus there.
Yep.
But anyways, the hexanchoids have been prominent in so many different ecosystems throughout deep time, and they're still around today. So I wouldn't call these like living fossils like what we see a lot of
Not
people
calling
refer to these
anything.
as.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
I hate the
hexanchoid.
term living fossil.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, the Hexanchus griseus, I mean, we're looking at probably teeth that are very similar to them within the Miocene onwards, but then again, we also have like bull sharks and things like that
Like
within
great
the
whites. Yeah.
Miocene.
Are you gonna call a great white a living fossil? Like, I guess you technically could because you have great white teeth in the fossil record, but whatever. Like,
Yeah, I
Every
mean, it
I just
takes what,
don't
like
like that
10,000.
term. It doesn't sit with me.
Mm-hmm.
has a fossil record. So like well, not has a fossil record, but persisted from to now from prehistoric times. So really, like every modern animal is a living fossil. So that it's kind of a meaning.
I mean,
It's
usually it takes like 10,000 years or so for a bone to fossilize, but I mean, there's even been cases in like the swamps of Florida where human remains, like within a couple hundred years, have been, going through the fossilization process. So really anything extant, I guess you can call a living fossil, but then that term means nothing.
yeah,
Exactly. See, I really feel like that term means nothing because especially because you don't have anything that's living today that is completely like to the like tiniest detail the same as it was, when we're looking at it like back in the fossil record. So
Yeah.
I just don't like the term at all. When I hear it, my insides kind of
Yeah, one more cool thing about hexanchoforms is that they're the only sharks with six or more gill slits outside of the six gill saw sharks. So that it's a pretty unique trait between them. So you have seven gills within hexanchoforms as well as six gills, but most sharks have five gills.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say they deserve an upper tier, but I don't know about the top two. Like, B tier is still a upper tier. You're still in the top half. I feel like this
I'm
could be.
going A tier on them.
Yeah, because you're a shark guy, dude. I'm thinking.
I would too, but I'm a shark gal.
It sounds like I'm being outvoted. What do you think, Cole?
Is the Greenland shark on this list too?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a surprise though.
Sorry. Um, I'm gonna go with with B tiers because I know how crowded A and S are about to get.
We should probably rock paper scissors each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking
I'll
B.
I'll go against you, Jared.
Yeah,
All
right.
right.
Rock.
Ready? Rock, paper, scissors.
You did scissors, paper, scissors. Shit. Damn. I can't see. Where are you
What
at?
is that?
I got
Scissors.
scissors.
Ah, let's go. I win. I did rock.
So you said B tier.
Yeah, I'm saying B tier.
This is a sad day.
Hey, there are
We've
other
got a
parts.
lot of good stuff on here, and we can always promote it.
Yeah, we can
That
promote
is
it.
true. That is true.
Yeah.
So our
Ooh.
first mammal on the list now is Cuvier's beaked whale.
Dude, I love beaked whales. I love beaked whales so much. They're so weird. I love that beaked whales, for the most part, most species of beaked whales are only known from like the occasional dead one that's washed ashore, and that
Hmm.
there's so few sightings of most of these living taxa. They have crazy dentitions with these big freaking like tusks that come out that they fight each other with.
Hmm.
I love that they're huge and like so unknown despite their big size. Beaked whales are like top tier cetacean. I think beaked whales are cooler than any other cetacean, even blue whales and stuff like that. Beaked whales are my pookies. I love beaked whales, dude.
Listening to people talk about beaked whales is like listening to people talk about Bigfoot. Like they're like, oh yeah, one time somebody in the '90s got a photo of one jumping out of the water. Like they're like real life cryptids.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
they're crazy, dude. Beaked
And
whales, are awesome. There's so many species too. I didn't know this. I
Yep.
like only really discovered beaked whales. Like they only came onto my radar of existence when I was like 21, and I was so shocked because you have so many taxa, and they're all known from like a specimen that's washed up to a beach. Like that's insane to me.
they're bigger like the not the Cuviers, but like the Arno's beaked whale is bigger than orcas. They're like almost 40 feet long.
Yes, and they're suction feeders with the craziest looking faces. Their faces are in, like, just for anybody listening, a beaked whale. Imagine kind of the same face shape as a right whale. They have this lower jaw that really like pushes up, but not all of them. But like a lot of them have this lower jaw that really hides much of the upper jaw. But at the peaks of those lower jaws on either side, they have these big tusks that come out. They're shaped a little bit like shovels or spikes or just points in some cases, and males use that to fight each other. So they're all covered in scars as well. Beaked whales, like coolest cetacean you've never heard of. I promise you, look up. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah, and these ones, the Cuvier's beaked whales, they get from around like 15 to 23 feet long, and they're around 4,000 to 6,800 pounds. But what I love about the whales, the beaked whales, and like you said too, Jared, I didn't know about these till pretty recently too. And it's cool that it's like a whale with almost like a pseudo dolphin type of face.
Yeah,
I find them kind of adorable looking. But the Cuvier's beaked whale is apparently the has the record for the longest dive or the deepest dive of any whale or of
yeah,
any
And
mammal.
longest.
Yeah.
And longest.
Yeah,
so,
I
Yeah, I
found
think
that crazy.
it's like 222 minutes or something is like the
Mhm.
longest clock dive, I think,
Yeah.
of theirs, and like something like almost 10,000 feet.
Yeah, it's like 98 over 9,800 feet in that dive, which is crazy.
yeah,
Yep.
dude. Beaked whales. I don't. No one can convince me these things are not S tier. I love beaked whales. A tier, I would like forgive you, but it'll take me a couple of days. Anything below that, we're not speaking anymore. I love beaked whales.
They're all
I'm
right.
struggling. I'm struggling seeing a higher tier on it, but I would do an A tier. I'm not sure if I can get myself to put it in an S tier.
Fair
I
enough.
can't put it in an S tier either. I mean,
Oh no, I'm so
also because like they don't strict because they do venture into the deep sea, but they are not strictly deep sea. Like I could see saying they're a deep sea whale, but that's only because they like take little mini vacations
Fish people
down to the deep sea.
do what they do, but better.
What?
Fish people are just mad that tetrapods can do what they do, but better.
I know.
Literally not.
Uh,
These animals live their entire lives, some of them 400 years, spoiler alerts. But but these things can only live what 222 minutes and then have to go back up in the
I'm
deep.
lame.
saying those fish getting up to 30 feet long.
Dude, these things are literally like
This
I mean
I
it.
think
Like
these
what
are only
Cole
23 feet long, the Cuviers.
I'm talking about beak whales generally, but
beaked whales can get a lot bigger than 23 feet. I just want to say like what Cole said. These things are literally the Bigfoot of the ocean. Like they're so mysterious. They're so mysterious. Like the fact that beaked whales, people seem to have this idea that you can't discover new species of big animals anymore. But beaked whales just
Mhm.
blow that out the water. Like they're just literally cryptids, and I think that is the dopest thing ever. So I think definitely a high tier. If you guys don't want to do S tier, I understand that because I have also demoted some of y'all's favorites, so it's okay. But I think A tier is I can live with A tier. Beaked whales rock.
Hmm.
I'm
I'm
thinking a solid B.
Yeah,
No.
I'm thinking B just because they're like snowbirds of the deep sea. They'll like go down there for a little bit and it's cool like as far as amongst cetaceans, I could see them being S tier. But when it comes to everything that, dwells in the deep sea, I just can't get behind it. Sorry, Jared.
They
What are
got
you thinking,
food
Cole?
dentition.
I'm sticking to my guns with you, man. S tier. I mean, if we got to like average those out, put it in A, still be it. But
Hey, we can always demote it. We can always demote it. I feel like a lawyer now. Yeah,
It's
let's
okay, we
average.
will demote it.
That's a great
Why
idea.
don't we go to the why don't can't we just do like the middle? Like, okay, so
Yeah, we'll
okay.
do A because they want S, which is ridiculous, and then we want
Yeah, let's split the difference and then demote it later.
yeah.
No. Okay,
We'll
that was
show force.
A tier. I can live with A tier. Cole, you have
Okay.
excellent opinions on things.
I'm well renowned.
Our next one is the colossal squid.
Good one.
So
Dude,
these are the largest invertebrate alive today by mass. So another one that we have on this list, I believe, can get longer, but this is the most massive that's alive today.
colossal squid rock. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie. You know what?
They're
All
also
the
the heaviest living invertebrate too, in
Mhm.
addition to largest.
I think largest means heaviest in this context, right?
In this, sure.
Yeah. I think the argument that I was making about why beaked whales are cool actually also apply to colossal squid. These things are also like Bigfoot. I mean, think about it. Colossal squid. When you think about a colossal squid in your mind, you think about this picture specifically because, like, what other pictures exist of them? You know, like it's this one. This is the picture. I've been seeing this picture since I was a kid, and there are
Mhm.
these, very cold water dwellers. They do who knows what, except get eaten by sperm whales, I guess. And
Yep.
that's like we don't know much about these things. They're awesome. I love big squid, and I have a high bias towards cephalopods. I feel like if I didn't go into paleo, I would have wanted to study extant cephalopods. So this is definitely way up there in the list for me.
And another cool thing that makes them like differentiates them and kind of makes them cool in their own right from the giant squid. Giant squid only have those serrated uh, suckers. Well, I don't know what's the scientific word, Megan.
You can call them suckers.
They've got the serrated suckers, but colossal squid also have like hooks alongside those serrated suckers.
Yep.
Big like
Yeah,
caracas.
their hooks go all the way down like their arms and tentacles too, which is really cool.
And what's
Yeah,
the max size on these things?
I've got the Wikipedia page up right here.
It's like 46 feet or something.
46 is to the 33 feet considered more likely, and somewhere between uh, 1,300 to 1,500 pounds for like max size.
But
They
don't
have
they
the
all?
largest eyes too that we've ever like known
oh,
to exist also. Like it's something like 12 inches in diameter.
Wow.
So that's a
dude,
big eye.
if
And
we're
don't
And
gonna
they're bioluminescent. Like
yeah.
they have glowing eyes. So
if we're gonna approach this with my childhood brain that says big equals cool, I think this is definitely in the top two tiers. I don't know which one. I'm okay with both. Like I'd
Well,
be
didn't
okay
they?
seeing S, and I'm also okay seeing it in A. This is a dope animal.
Hmm. Didn't they also find larger beaks within like sperm whale gut contents than what we know for the largest
yep.
definitive specimen as well? So
Probably.
Yep.
these things got even larger than what we know.
And what's insane is
Yep.
they're so prolific. I don't know if it's just the colossal squid or also Architeuthis as well, like giant squid, but there was this study that was just looking at the insides of sperm whale, gut contents, and they were trying to estimate, like, okay, if sperm whales need to eat, this much per week or day or whatever, like, can we estimate how many squid, like individual squid, these things are eating, and from there extrapolate like a general population estimate. And there's supposed to be like insane amounts of giant squid and colossal squid out there. I don't remember the exact numbers, so I'm not going to even try and quote it. But maybe we can have maybe I can Google this. Like there are giant populations of both colossal squid and giant squid are supposed to exist based off of this study's suggestion.
I think that mainly goes for giant squid more so than colossal squid. Giant colossal squids are restricted to the southern oceans,
Mm-hmm.
in between, like basically not found anywhere further north than the case South Africa or the South America. Uh, would have our global distribution. I think the giant squid are the ones that have. They're probably both maybe comparable within their own ranges, but like giant squid are the ones with global distributions and are the ones that like are extremely common in SpongeBob gut contents. Although I'm sure colossal squid are also known from that.
Gotcha. I think the decision that we're gonna have to make here is I don't know if giant squid are coming up, but just in case they are, we kind of have to decide whether we like these more than giant squid.
I do.
You do?
I agree.
I do. Yeah, another cool thing about them, so I was talking about how large their eyes are and how like they're bioluminescent. So these guys are deaf to high frequencies like whale sonar. So that's one reason why they need to have these really highly developed eyes, because since they can't hear whales basically attacking them, they need to be able to see them. So that's one reason why they have these really ginormous eyes that are really developed.
I wonder if my tinnitus from going to too many concerts will allow me to adapt with bigger eyes.
True.
I'm thinking, see, I'm really not an invertebrate guy, but I feel like an A tier makes sense for these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see y'all's reasoning with why you thought my placement of the beaked whale was insane. Because all the arguments that I made with the beaked whale, almost all the arguments, can kind of be made with colossal squid as well. They're both very respectable.
I'm going to give maybe my hottest take of the episode. They're kind of mid.
Oh no, Cole! I just complimented your good opinions on things. What's happened?
I think they're overrated because like the general kind of public conception of them is that they're like real life krakens. When
They
like
are.
it gets, I think it's very frequently overstated how large these things are. They're big. They're the biggest invertebrates, obviously. Wouldn't they would kill you if they got the chance pretty easily, but they're the size of cows. They're not that big. They're not mythological krakens, and I find that kind of disappointing to like my
You're
my
mad because they're not mythological.
kinda and they're very frequently treated like this. So I have this disappointment in me surrounding giant squid that makes me drags it down a lot for me.
Well, I don't think that weight in of itself can really be a litmus test for how, I guess, powerful something is, because when we look at like extant birds of prey, those things are so light, yet pound for pound, they're ferocious.
Maybe, but they're also like their primary role in the ecosystem is just be food for sperm whales.
That's a bold take.
What do they eat? What do they eat? They're using these giant hooks and suckers for something. I assume they have that giant parrot-like beak as well. I'm gonna
Yep.
guess. Yeah. So what are they eating? Other squids?
Probably, I mean, anything that it can pretty much get a hold of, I'm pretty sure it can, anything, usually anything that cephalopods can get through their beak, they'll eat. And
Probably a large
they're
amount
good
of the,
fighters. Yeah.
I'd imagine probably a large amount of the mid-size animals on this list.
Bro, they're eating the megalodons that live in the deep ocean today. That's what they're doing.
That
That's
explains it.
That's why we don't find them.
Yeah.
That was the dude. They're surviving the bottom of the Marinara Trench eating giant squid. Was the
I'm still sticking with A. So I think everyone else is at A. So I think Cole, your wrong opinion is going to be outvoted.
it's aggregate. So we need to, and I'm gonna give it C. So I think you gotta. Is that a low A or a B?
I
It
think
is insane to rank it lower than Hexanchus. I'm not gonna lie. I can see it in B. Like A, I'm comfortable with it. I can begrudgingly allow it to be in B, in my opinion. But
Yeah, I can too.
should we compromise with Colwyn, begrudgingly put it in B?
Look, they're cool, but you know how many awesome animals are on this tier list?
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
Okay,
So
we'll put
we're
it. At least it's in the
D.
top.
I'm going to be cognizant of kind of like the eventual painful promoting and demoting we're going to end up having to do on this thing.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
It does
here's the
not
thing.
belong above Hexanchus, I will say. Like, that would be a crime.
Mhm. So, yeah. Oof. Okay. So this is
Hmm?
my favorite shark that's alive today, my favorite deep sea animal. We have the viper dogfish, Trigonognathus cabii.
Man, it
This
has very.
Really good one.
It has
this
very.
one has everything outside of size that makes it cool. So, like another unnamed shark that we'll have later on in this list, you have these protruding jaws that can lunge out and grasp prey. These are like so they're dogfish, like in their name, so they'd be within the order Squaliforms. But unlike any other squaliform alive today, it has a tearing style dentition with teeth that are spaced out much differently than what we see with other squaliforms, especially when we look at lower squaliform teeth. For the most part, you have these interlocking teeth with each other, whereas these, look at those. Those are like fangs. These are really cool. They're bioluminescent, which is another cool thing. Yeah, these are one of my favorite things of all time.
I like them. I think they're little cutie pies. I can't.
Fabulous.
I can't see him in S tier, but I could see him in A tier. I could see him in B tier too. They should be in the upper half. I like the. I like its. I like its jaws. It reminds me of my own favorite deep sea shark, which will remain unnamed for a little bit.
You just named it, but I mean, there's really not that many sharks that have those really highly extending jaws like that. And that's what makes these guys fun when so many people talk about that other shark that we're not going to name right now. I think that this is a shark that they don't realize exists because these like little tiny glowy deep sea sharks are just, so underappreciated.
Mm.
And they're like when you see like the Trigonognathus, they have like their jaws are basically like a triangle, which is where that name comes from. This is one of the few sharks we don't have, or a shark I really want in the collection at my museum, and I'm trying to hunt one down because they're pretty rare. There's not that many specimens in museums. There's only like 20 something of them in museums all the way around the world.
Mhm.
So, and they're ultra black, which like I've talked about a lot of things in the deep sea being really, really dark, so they can blend in. Just
They get underdog points. I can see them getting underdog.
They're the
underdog
coolest
fish
shark that people
points.
don't know about. Yeah,
I could
and
agree with that.
they're within the family Edmopteridae, so these would be the lantern sharks. And even if we broaden out to the squalene sharks, so all extant sharks, we have two super orders. We have the galleon sharks, which has the great white, your bull sharks, your porch action sharks, things like that. And then you have your squalomorph sharks or squalene sharks, where you have like the six gill that we had before in the viper dogfish. And a dentition like this, a tearing style dentition, really isn't common within squalene sharks historically at all. It's a really unique thing that very few squalene sharks have evolved throughout time.
I'll let
And
you guys one. Y'all know a lot more about it than me. I'll kind of agree with wherever this guy goes.
S tier.
Oh,
Oh
whoa,
man.
that's a hot take. Maybe
I want to agree with you, but there's so many more. There's so many good fit or I want to say fish. There's so many good fish on this list, but
I can think
I really love them.
I can think of a shark right now that should go in S tier, and it's not this one.
I'm
Uh,
thinking this
oh
one's cooler than that shark that you're thinking
Yeah,
about.
I think
no,
this shark's cooler than that shark.
no, I'm thinking of a different shark, and I'm hoping you guys bring it up later. Actually,
Well, whatever it is, this one's cooler.
Cole, what do you think?
My brain is like declining to form an opinion about this thing. Like
Okay,
it,
all
it,
right.
it's
I'm just gonna bend over. Yeah, let's do S tier. It's fine.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
I
I'll
you know.
somebody else's opinions because I don't know. I'm not coming up with much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with us here.
Yeah.
Because I know so
It
little
has
about
to be. It's the
it,
coolest
like
thing
kind
ever.
of bores me. But you
It
guys seem
bores you?
very opinionated because you know about it. So I'm gonna assume that means it's like way cooler than I know.
It looks like a little monster. And I mean, it's so tiny, but I mean, look at it.
You have
Ugh.
tiny bias. I've noticed that. You like the little guys.
I
Versus,
like little things that are super duper charismatic. You're on you like the really, really big stuff. I like the underdogs of like the little things that look really big and ferocious.
Yeah.
hey, I gave the viperfish pretty high marks, and but this, I think that thing is far more formidable appearing
Mhm.
than that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I'll put up in post a picture of it with its jaws like fully protruded. It is crazy looking.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. That's awesome.
An obligaster.
Tooth. This is basically just another swimming head, but it doesn't have a lure. Yeah,
Nope.
it's just a
And
head.
it's not very closely related to anglerfish, even though they look very similar to anglerfish, but they're
Yeah,
not.
it looks like
They're
an
not.
anglerfish without a lure. Huh.
Yep.
Well, because it's lost that because it doesn't have a lure. To me, to the layman's perspective, because again, I'm a fossil guy. I don't know anything about these things. I'm gonna say layman's perspective, it can only be lower than an anglerfish. You know, like what does it have that an anglerfish doesn't have?
The
Nothing.
highest tooth to body ratio of any animal.
Whoa! Actually,
Yep.
dang. Okay, so is it also stabbing things like the viperfish was?
Yep.
Okay, dope,
You should
dope,
school
dope.
us on this animal,
And
Megan.
they can almost make like a cage too, because they have that really, their teeth are kind of very curled in. So yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
very large teeth though. Really. And their skin is very rigid too. And when you look at it, it looks like it has like little plates all over it, which is there's patterning of their skin is very interesting. But their teeth is really, I mean, that's where they get their name from. That's their claim to fame.
Well, big equals cool. So,
Apparently.
Well, I guess it depends what we're talking about for big. If we're talking about body size or if we're talking about tooth size.
big teeth. Big teeth equals cool. I'm allowed to have non-scientific opinions about these things since I don't study them. So big teeth equals cool.
Is there any other interesting adaptations from these?
I mean, I think the teeth is really their big standout quality. They really, they're kind of a basic deep sea fish, other than that really that giant tooth to body ratio.
Yeah,
They're not really one of my specialties though.
Hmm.
I will say I'm getting a little bit jaded to big teeth because these all have giant teeth. So, like, yeah, it's cool, but I don't think it's A or B. I don't think it's A or S tier.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't think it's in
I
the
could
top.
see it as a B or C.
yeah, I'd give it a C.
Let's do C.
I'd give it a C.
Yeah,
Quantified group hater, I'll give it a C.
I'm sorry, an obligaster.
C's
Angler,
not bad. Nothing
It's
has.
respectable, it's not an F.
We
yeah,
just have so many cooler things on this list. But
Yeah,
this
Yeah, I don't
list,
know what
almost
we're gonna put
everything.
in F.
yeah. I think we need to go ahead and put blobfish down now. It's like preemptively.
I feel so bad for hating the blobfish. I don't hate the blobfish. I'm just not
Let's
impressed.
give it a fighting chance at D, see what happens.
yeah.
Okay.
If it deserves a demotion, we'll have no choice. So
Mm.
the
Ooh,
giant isopod.
giant isopod, brother. Ooh, you know what's crazy? These things, I guess, technically, I mean, yeah, they're both isopods. These are related to roly polies. These are just giant roly polies that walk around on the seafloor.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was nuts for me to find out. Because I didn't know that as a kid. When I was a kid, I thought roly polies were insects, but they're not. They're crustaceans, dude. Those things are closer to crabs than to insects. That's nuts to me. And so this is just a giant roly poly on the seafloor eating
Yep.
detritus.
Well, what I find more interesting than the giant isopods in the oceans is that we have roly-polies alive on land that are just crustaceans that you can find in like your backyard. Like when I lived in Massachusetts, these things would be everywhere in my backyard.
Yeah,
Yep.
Hopefully not giant isopods.
No,
Hopefully,
not giant
That'd
ones.
be
I
cool.
yeah.
You guys
Yeah,
remember
they did
ago
get much larger in the ocean.
there was that there was that some people got an isopod and were carrying around like a baby. You guys remember those videos?
Yeah.
you know,
People are eating these guys now. Like there's like giant isopod ramen. It looks absolutely disgusting.
Um,
Like people eat the weirdest things, honestly.
yeah, giant isopods. I will say, isopods as a whole. I've seen this on Instagram and stuff. Isopods as a whole have a cult following. A lot of people love isopods specifically, but I've never hopped on that train. I can't relate. I mean, they're cool. Um,
there was
some
like
isopods as a whole, they're those parasitic ones that replace fish tongues. I think that's an isopod that does it.
Yep.
But that's not a giant isopod. Giant
No.
isopods are just like big roly poly. So I think we can put them in personally, like C.
And
So
they
I
can
get,
like survive like 5 years without eating. So
Oh,
like, and they're like extreme scavengers, and they'll eat basically until they can't move.
it's
so
like
I
just
Yeah.
think I think this would also be a good segue to talk about abyssal gigantism. Like why are these things so big compared to like their other counterparts that would either be in like shallower water or on land?
how big are they in the first place? Like football sized?
I have seen a specimen that's about this long
That's
in
like what,
our,
11 inches?
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Why can animals get so big in the deep?
Mhm. Basically, things have like extremes. You'll have things that will be really, really small and really, really big, and it really just has to do with their what will make them most likely to survive. These guys, because you find them a lot on whale falls, actually, on my whale fall thing behind me. I have some giant isopods on there, but I mean, it also helps give them a lot of protection. They can take in a lot of food, which makes it so they can live such long periods of time without having to eat.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Awesome.
These guys are, I think, like trawlers hate them because they will pretty much go after anything that is in nets. Like they'll just eat, like destroy trawl nets and just eat, like tear apart fish that are in them. Um,
Based.
revolt.
So
yeah.
I'm still gonna go with C on them. I can't get past the whole big roly poly thing. So
I think C is a it's a generous placement.
you think
Yeah.
generous?
Yeah, I mean I would look at it
I
and
put it
think
D.
D, but I mean it does sound interesting that they can live for like 5 years without eating, that they dismantle that they dismantle the fishing industry. That's pretty cool. So
D.
Yeah.
so yeah, I'd say D is or I'd say C is a good tier for them.
Yeah.
C is generous. Yeah.
Yeah.
It absolutely should not be higher than C, but I can see it
Definitely not.
going lower than C. I think C is like nice, and
Mhm.
it'll probably get downgraded later if I'm being honest. But for now, C is good.
I think they're adorable.
They are, yeah. What do you think, Cole?
I'm thinking, yeah, I think C is good.
Yeah.
B for crustacean.
All right, so our two main tiers, the highest ones are filling up. We're halfway there. So
Oh my,
let's oh yes. There we go. Pearl shark.
Hmm.
So
Pro
this
shark.
is another one of my all-time favorites. So we talked about the six gill. This is also within the order Hexancoforms, but this would be within a suborder Chlamydoselacoidae, which is different than the hexancoids. So these would be sister to all of those that we just talked about previously. These also have six pairs of gill slits. They have another thing that I didn't talk about before is that the hexancoforms outside of I think the one fin cat shark, the hexancoforms are the only sharks that have just one dorsal fin that are alive today, which I find pretty cool. But these things are so, these are another like quote unquote living fossil, but in reality, they're actually pretty derived compared to the fossil record. Our frill sharks, we have, or the Chlamydoselaccidae, we have fossils from the Cretaceous onwards, albeit they're rare because they inhabit deep sea environments. The fossil records can be spotty, but you had great diversity within the Cretaceous for your Chlamydoselacids. You had these great white-sized ones that were found in Hornby Island, Dickeus garrethi. Those teeth got pretty big. The interesting thing about their teeth is that you have three main cusps. So you have three principal prongs. Sometimes you'll see like intermediate cusplets between the median one and then the two big lateral ones. Um, but these things, because of their tooth design, made scientists think at first that these were from an ancestral stock, an group of animals called the Cladodont's, which we know from the Paleozoic because they also have a lingually expanded tooth base, as well as a long principal cusp and other lateral cusplets. You had cladodonts such as Hesperotus, which would have had a similar tooth structure to the frill shark, with two greatly expanded lateral cusplets, as well as another group of eel-like chondrichthyans within the Paleozoic called the Phobodontiforms, which also had these similar prong tooth designs to the frill shark. But I mean, phylogenetically speaking, we found out that these were actual cow sharks. These weren't our those things, as cool as that would be. So they aren't those Paleozoic archaic animals that somehow survived. These things would have been sister to all of our other cow sharks.
I just Googled their teeth, and I do think they are cooler personally than the other hexanchoforms. I think this should go on at least the same tier as this hexanchus, but probably higher, you know?
Well,
Um,
another thing interesting about their teeth is how they're structured within the jaw, how they interlock with each other. That's another thing that is pretty similar to the cladodonts that we know from the Paleozoic. And that also probably ties into why people thought that these were a cladodont that somehow survived and took refuge in the deep sea. But again, yeah, they're really cool, and it's crazy how you have such different tooth designs within the same order of each other.
yeah, yeah, it's really cool that it's basically just a root with three spikes sticking out, like someone took a pitchfork and just took the outer two spikes of the pitchfork and just bent them outwards at a 45-degree angle. And that's one tooth. That's wild. I think this deserves a high tier.
I know something kind of funny about these guys. So there's like a data aggregator that like kind of records shark attacks against humans. And even though these guys would never come in contact with people in life, they actually are on there, or at least they used to be, because a lab specimen, someone in the lab actually cut their hand on the specimen's tooth, and somehow that incident ended up in the data aggregator, so they were listed as a threat to humans just because of this lab specimen that was dead. uh, I have myself cut my hand on these guys in the lab, so I can attest to their teeth being incredibly sharp.
Mm.
So,
Got my hand on a Carcharodontosaur tooth one time. I wouldn't call them.
Yeah, I,
hmm.
I not too long ago cut my finger on a like a Coniacean 89 million-year-old Cretoxy tooth. I should register at as a threat to
Nice.
humans now.
And that's fitting because
Yeah.
their nickname's the Ginsu shark, based
Yeah,
on
no,
the Ginsu
I
knives.
have I have found their teeth that way before. Like I'll put my hand on a rock as I'm like climbing up something, and there's just a tooth sticking out. So that's happened.
Skates. Skates are the bane of my existence. Every time I work with skates, I end up being impaled or just like bleeding.
All right, so what do y'all think for the ranking?
I mean, I'm biased, but I would say S tier.
Ooh. So what will that be? The fourth animal we
Yeah.
have in S, and then we can have six. Is that
Yeah, we can have six. So there's
okay?
still room, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as okay.
what do you think?
I'm gonna go A. I'm gonna go A.
I
Like,
think
like,
comfortable. Oh, like I think if we put it in S, it's just gonna get demoted.
yeah. Um, I think A. I love that it looks like a Paleozoic animal that's alive, um,
Yeah.
that, even though it's not. But I think A. Yeah. I don't think it's got the it factor for S here, but it's cool.
Hmm.
What do you think?
I'd say S or A. I'm kind of torn between the two.
So if you're good with
But
S, Jared is okay with S, we can put it in S and worst comes to worst, demote it.
yeah,
But
it's
I'm
Okay.
not seeing it getting
so
demoted.
far it's the least confident S tier that I have. Like it's a low tier S tier.
Mm.
Okay.
I'm so happy my two favorites are in the S tier. So next up is the glass octopus.
Yeah.
Oh, just a little guy, dude. That's named quite well. It is literally just a clear octopus.
Yep.
Yep.
I looked into this one. It's not much is known. It's there's been like not that many specimens described. One of them was in the stomach of a whale.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, it's where are my notes for it?
I love how when you texted me about this animal, you said it's basically a useless animal.
Oh yeah, for notes I wrote down allowing it like those old Obama speeches. We go now. Let me make myself perfectly clear. That's that's this thing because it's I think the most transparent animal I've ever seen. Um,
It is really cool, and I am a big cephalopod lover. I'm very biased to cephalopods. My favorite extant animal, period, are probably the cuttlefishes. So, these things are close to my heart. However, if I was not biased to cephalopods, I would probably put it pretty low. So I would say like,
just
oh my
not.
god, like D tier probably, but I want to say C tier. But if I was not biased to cephalopods, I'd probably put it to D
I
tier.
think it's okay to let your biases run wild here.
Let's go.
I've
C
been.
tier. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't know much about these guys. I mean, I love cephalopods and I like how clear it is, but as far as that, I don't really know much
That's all I
about
have
them.
going for it. It's just clear octopus.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, they just look like a glass octopus sculpture, which is very cool. But
I'm fine with D or F tier.
yeah, me too.
What do you think?
I hate putting a cephalopod that low, but yeah.
What else is going to go in half?
Blobfish. So let's put this in C or D, in my opinion. If y'all need to do D's fine, but a cephalopod and F
I
tier.
think D is still fair.
I think D is, I'd
Yeah,
go with D.
we'll do
Okay.
we'll do D.
Yeah.
Poor little guy.
Our
Yeah,
next
sorry,
one
baby.
is the giant phantom jelly.
Giant fancy dude. I have to zoom
I
in
know
on.
nothing about these guys. I don't know Cnidarians like very
Are,
well.
wow, I've never even heard of these. Cnidarians are really cool. What I like about Cnidarians is if you think about the Cambrian, right? So everyone knows about the Cambrian explosion. Well, prior to the Cambrian explosion, you had the Ediacaran, and the Ediacaran was when the first complex multicellular life evolved. It's not really well known until the 19 like late 1900s. People really start focusing on this thing on the Ediacaran biota, and I think the Ediacaran itself was only proposed as a time period in like 2002 or something super late. Don't quote me on that, so Google it first. But the Ediacaran life is really cool, and what's cool about Ediacaran life is that you had these complex multicellular organisms that might be an evolutionary dead end, not related to anything in the Cambrian, but at the same time you also had the Cnidarians. So you had these functional aliens that don't lead to anything that's alive today, but then there were also the Cnidarians, the jellyfishes, or the jellies is I guess what people want to call them now. The jellies were swimming around. And so any Cnidarian just based off of how freaking ancient this group is, I think any Nigerian cannot be an F tier. And this is really cool looking. Can you imagine that thing in a fish tank? But at the same time, I know nothing about it. So I'm sure someone's screaming right now that this is their favorite, but I think it should be in the bottom three.
Yeah, I mean, what is it about this jelly specifically that makes it especially cool compared to other?
Dude, it's black. It's
It's
black and it
it's
has these
big.
super thick tentacles.
How giant is
How
the jelly?
big do these ones get?
I have no idea. Let's look
Dang.
it up.
I mean,
Jellyfish just never really interest me. I mean, they look pretty cool, but at the same time,
they're so ancient. That's what I like about them. And this thing is wild. I'm not kidding. This is genuinely the coolest jellyfish I've ever seen. Like I've actually jellyfish that looks cooler than this. It is a pitch black jelly. It has this kind of almost a red glow about its head area, and it's those tentacles are quite thick. That's really interesting to see. So giant phantom jelly, cool jelly, but I don't know much about jellies, and I
Yeah.
mean,
About 3.3 feet, it says, and they've only been sighted 27 times in 27 years.
dude, let's go.
Yeah.
So they're like the Bigfoot of jellyfish.
Yeah. That's
so
big.
what
I
are we
guess it's not
thinking for the
huge, but
rating?
mm,
I'm gonna put it at C just because of how no D. I'm gonna say
I'd
C.
say D.
Yeah.
Because the 3 feet is the bell,
Yeah.
or another 30 feet.
Yeah, it's the bell.
So they're actually pretty giant.
Yeah.
Wait, you
That
said that they got like 30 feet long with the.
with the arms, so they are quite large.
that makes me want to put it a little bit higher than D. I don't know. That's really cool.
I think this is a good C tier animal. I don't know what makes this. I mean, it's black. I'm sure there are other black jellyfish. I don't know if there are any other black
Just
giant.
This one's giant though.
like just aesthetically, like big equals cool, and also it's black, and also its tentacles are hella thick. So this is a crazy looking jellyfish. I want to put it at C, just aesthetically. I know nothing about its biology, but aesthetically, it's so cool. So
In a list full of shiny black animals, this one's very matte black.
yes, yes.
It's a good sciencey way to put it. I could see C or D. I mean, personally, jellyfish don't really do anything for me, so I put it in D, but I could definitely see an argument for it being a C tier.
I see C personally. We don't have that much in C tier either, so like this is a good
Yeah.
case.
Yeah, see. I feel bad for like I don't want to downvote things that I just don't know much about though. I'm
Mhm.
sure like this could be the coolest thing on the planet to some people. But
All right,
oops.
So
I
C
think
on it?
yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Like it does get points for being the coolest looking jellyfish I've ever seen in my life, considering how different they are. So it kind of meant when that honestly, it being a C kind of makes me want to put the giant isopods lower. I'd way rather see one of those than a giant isopod. All right, what's the next one?
All right, let's see. We have the giant sea spider.
Hmm.
Now, I couldn't find a great picture for this individual species, so we have this one in a Riker mount, but these things are wild looking.
Is it actually a spider? I doubt it. I assume it's just a crustacean, right?
No, they're not spiders.
Yeah, they're just a crustacean, I'd assume, right?
Maybe not. They might be something like Calicerae or something. Let me look at it.
Hmm. Because if it was actually like taxonomically a spider, that would be the dopest thing I've ever heard, and that would be instantly be like at least B tier, you
They're
know?
they're not spider. They're Calicerates. They're pycnogonids.
Yep.
Okay. Boo. Not B tier.
Their organs are in their legs, which is kind of cool.
Especially since their legs are so skinny. Yeah, to anybody
Yeah.
who's only listening to this thing basically like the closest thing I can compare it to is like a daddy long legs with a long thorax, kind of. Like, it's just a skinny looking spider with the biggest legs you've ever seen in your life. But it has one, two, three, four, five, six pairs of legs. I think I'm counting that right. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know anything about these, but it is cool.
They can get really big too, like larger than a dinner plate. I hate to use silly metrics, but yeah, they can get really big.
Well,
Dude, this,
if we look at this scale over here, that says 50 millimeters.
yeah,
And that's like basically just the body region of it. Those legs are super long.
those legs are
Yeah.
crazy. And to be fair, it's okay to absolutely not use scientific things here because it will make me feel better being one of the unwashed masses that does not study these, doesn't know any better. So this is great. It helps me visualize it.
28 inches, so 2.5 feet. That's
Solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not that impressed by them. I'm a little bored with this thing. So maybe bottom three. I don't know which one. I don't hate them. They're just like
Yeah.
Does seem like a D tier type of animal.
I agree. I agree.
We
But
just are hating on invertebrates. I feel bad. Other than the blobfish, we're definitely vertebrate people.
Just not an invert person, yeah. It's not really
Yeah.
anything for me.
to be fair, if glass sponges and pseudoryds were in this list, I would put them so much higher. So I do have some bias to some inverts.
well, maybe we can rectify that with one of the animals I researched. Really cool.
Ooh.
Yeah. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to get there when we get there?
We'll get there when we get there. It'll be a journey. So I'm thinking a D tier, maybe even an F tier.
Yeah, either.
Put it in F, right?
F.
F, giant sea spider.
Okay.
F.
Sorry, buddy.
Dang. It's okay. I don't think any giant sea spiders are watching this, so they won't be.
Hopefully not, yeah. You'll
That'd
get their
be
legs
cool.
very angry.
All right, what do we got next?
We have the giant squid now.
Ah.
Architeuthis.
Yeah.
I like Architeuthis. I like that these things were basically a cryptid before it was first photographed in 2004. Like literally had Bigfoot status almost. I mean, there were some washed up specimens, so not quite, but like these were as close to a cryptid as you could get in the modern realm, and that definitely gives it points to me.
Never
So
about the giant squid. Like I think they were pretty known to science. I'm not sure. I don't think cryptid status is appropriate. We didn't have any live specimens, but like they're pretty not pretty common, but like relatively common.
oh,
Short.
they're supposed to be gajillions of them. I think the first photo though was only taken in 2004. I'm
Huh.
gonna Google how many.
No, because I think Edith Witter recorded one um diving like in a submersible before 2004.
Oh,
I can't
okay. I'm
remember.
stupid. I don't know what I'm talking about. My bad. Yeah. Okay. How many giant squids are there? Whale stomachs.
Jared, I think what you're talking about is that was they got it feeding.
Mm.
I remember I watched that documentary when it aired as like like an 8-year-old or something. Huge for me.
Although if these things inspired legends like the Kraken, then it could still have like some sort of cryptid status just for being the inspiration for something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna read this off of some random website that I just pulled up. So if it's from the internet, it's obviously true. Just keep that in mind. I'm just kidding. um, but I think this is kind of referencing that beak study. So it says based on the number of beaks collected from digestive tracts of sperm whales, scientists estimate that there are around 4.3 million giant squids inhabiting the depths of the oceans. That may seem high, but estimates can go much higher. Some calculation put the maximum number of giant squids at 130 million. That would be insane. But yeah, they're good. There are bunches of these things for how elusive that they are. I think that's a cool thing about them. And I'm not gonna lie, that's how they are responsible for the formation of ambergris. I know it's technically whales that are, but it's the accumulation of the hard bits of these squid. And I know it's not just Architeuthis, like it's other squid as well, but the accumulation of the hard bits of the squid in like 1 in 100 sperm whales, it just accumulates in that whale's digestive tract. The whale eventually dies, and then these like concreted like poopy squid parts just tumble around in the ocean for years and years and years, and then it is essentially getting gemstone status after that. You know, people still make perfume out of it, and it's worth millions and millions of dollars. The ancient Egyptians even valued ambergris, so it has so much giant squid have so much cultural impact on human society that I think, even though they're boring and well known to some people, I think they do deserve a high ranking.
And
Okay.
were
One of my
these things,
favorite things. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
I was
Cole.
just gonna say, weren't these things, even though they didn't weigh as much as the colossal squid, weren't they a little bit longer?
I think
Like they've got those two, what do you call them? Those the pair of cephalopod will help me.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
the actual
tentacles.
tentacles.
They're like this colossal squid are like 25 to 30 feet, and these guys are like 40 plus feet, right?
Yeah, the females can get up to like in the 40s, but the males don't get that long. My favorite thing about these guys is I think it's in Irish or Gaelic, their name translates to Big Mother of Suck, which I think is fabulous.
bro, that's what they call me at the club. That's crazy. Um,
Yeah.
I'm thinking this thing is gonna be a solid B tier. I think it should be in the top half of the list. That might be a controversial opinion, but I mean, these have such an impact on human perception of the ocean and so much historical impact, even going back to the ancient Egyptians with ambergris, and they inspire things like the Kraken. I think it's a good B tier.
I just can't have it above the colossal squid.
Same,
Yeah.
I,
same.
I feel like the giant squid more than I like the colossal squid. I was actually prepared to compromise with you guys that if you guys wanted to bump colossal squid and put up giant squid in like ARS, I was willing to do that. But if
Hmm.
not, I guess B tier for Marketooth's ducks.
Yeah, I don't think I prefer colossal squid over giant squid. Like I think I kind of think of them at the same level. I don't prefer one
Hmm.
over the other. I think B tier is good. It can be next to colossal squid at B tier. I think that's a good judgment.
I'm fine with that.
Squid just have such great eyes, just their big eyes and are really amazing.
Hmm. I'm down with B tier on those.
Let's go.
Yeah. A good book is what is the name of it? Below the Edge of Darkness by Edith Witter. It talks a lot about like kind of the pioneers of like deep sea ocean exploration and technologies that were used. And one of them was kind of like trying to find like and film the giant squid, which it's pretty fascinating book.
Hmm.
Um, I one thing I want to clarify real quick. We've kind of construed both giant squid and colossal squid as like the primary prey of sperm whales. And I was kind of curious about this, and a few I looked it up. Giant squid are a considerable portion of sperm whale gut contents, but they're not the majority or even the most common species. That would be, I think, Humboldt squid slash jumbo squid.
Yep.
Yep. But I feel like they're easier to ID. You're opening up a sperm whale digestive tract. It's pretty easy to point out a giant squid beak versus a other stuff. But there's morphological variation. You don't have to use size alone. So
What is that sperm whales specialized giant squid predators? Which I just
Humboldt squid school, they have, you get massive schools of Humboldt squid,
yeah,
and they're so big.
yeah, they're like the Humboldt squid are like 6, 7 feet, right?
Oh, they get really big. They're
Humboldt squids have killed.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, they call them like red devil squid or something, right? Isn't that
Mhm.
one of their other common names? Red devil
Yep.
squid. Yeah. Giant tube worm.
Yeah.
Woo!
What do these things do?
Alrighty, so this is Mr. Invertebrate that I think is neat. Let me pull up my notes. So, giant tumor, they're annelids. They secrete a mineral tube. Um, they get big, 10 feet long. They only live literally exclusively. They're related to animals that live elsewhere, and they're related to other annelids that live kind of throughout the various portions of the water column. But um, these guys are only found in the direct vicinity of hydrothermal vents. That raises some interesting questions about how they're actually doing dispersal, because these hydrothermal vent zones can be pretty isolated. How they're getting from the Mid Atlantic Ridge to place in the Pacific, because it is the same species, and they are genetically very conserved. Like they've got a very like limited population size going on because they can only grow in these very extreme specific conditions, but they have like a worldwide distribution. They um, they tolerate an extremely large range of temperature. They're found throughout the entire gradient of hydrothermal occupation. So anywhere from kind of a 2 degrees Celsius uh, near the vents to 30 degrees Celsius. Hot. They are extremely sulfide tolerant, which like they're the most sulfide tolerant animals. Um, they don't produce their own food. They have a symbiotic relationship with bacteria, so they become essentially infected. They have this, and the larval and the subadult stages. They have this full digestive tract, but they grow a structure in their midgut called a trophosome. They grow a huge structure in their midgut called the trophosome, and then lose the rest of their digestive system. So this trophosome becomes infected with these bacteria that they share a symbiotic relationship with, and the bacteria are extremophiles that eat, the huge amounts of sulfides and that of sulfides surrounding, put out by a hydrothermal vent, because sulfides naturally like reducing getting into a bit of chemistry. Well, a lot of what is to be known about giant tube worms is chemistry, which
Hmm.
makes for terrible podcasting. But um, they because sulfides are so reducing, there's very little spaces that you can get both sulfides and dissolved oxygen at the same time. So the bacteria are reliant on these tube worms to intake sulfides and dissolved oxygen at the same time, so that they can feed on both those things for respiration, for cellular respiration. Uh, their hemoglobin is extremely like resilient to the reducing effects of the sulfides, allowing those two, um, you know, elemental components to exist at the same place within their digestive tract. Their reduced, specialized digestive tract. Uh, they're warm-blooded, or like, well, I don't even know if you can call it an animal warm-blooded, but they've got really high metabolic rates of their relatives. They hit sexual maturity in like record times. They
They
grow
grow really fast.
fast, exactly. Um, and yeah, I think they're pretty cool, and they kind of provide along with a few other mollusks, like the basis for this hydrothermal vent system that really exists independently as like an enclosed system. Like it's not an enclosed, it's obviously like receives, like can receive outside input from like nutrients and stuff like that. But it can, and maybe even did exist as an isolated system without necessary input from the sun to provide like the basis for that big energy cycle. So uh, I think they're cool, and I would like them in ARS here.
I
I,
agree.
I like them high up there.
I
They're
think
really cool animals.
I think these things are as alien as you can get in multicellular animal life, and I mean that kind of holds true too. Because if you're gonna look for uh, if you're an astrobiologist and you're interested in life elsewhere, and you're looking at places like Europa and Enceladus with those moons that have the giant ice sheets and then those oceans underneath their ice sheets, if you're going to have communities, it might resemble something like this. So just not based on what we understand about current life. Like again, these are fully chemosynthetic; they don't really need the sun. So that is a thing that I think we should also consider in putting it in, yeah, A or S tier.
So I was gonna say B or C, but since you guys let me put all of my sharks in S, I'll let you guys have this one.
Let's let's
I,
let's
I'd
throw.
say A.
Okay.
I think they are really, I mean, just hydrothermal vents, the fact that they're like one of the most extreme environments on the planet, yet they still have this huge just biomass between, there's just so many animals that you can find surviving in one of the most extreme places on the planet. And a lot of that is thanks to these giant tube worms. And they're beautiful. Like they seriously look like giant flowers, like with that big plume at the end that's, it's so red because of that hemoglobin. And that is collecting nutrients in the water that helps feed their symbiotic bacteria, which is where the worms get their nutrients from. It's just, they're so complicated. And once you get into this really intense chemistry, it just really starts to melt my brain a lot. But they're still, the more I try to learn about them, the more confused I get. And I admire that about them.
Mhm.
I think putting him in A tier is I think like they personally, I think they deserve S tier, and I feel like we'll have to bump out one of the existing S tiers into A tier at some point to make room for the giant tube worm.
Yeah. I think we need an invertebrate in S tier. I think that's the one.
Yeah, I'm gonna
If there's
say
going to be an invertebrate in S tier, I think it has to be Riftia.
yeah.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, we only have one spot left in our S.
Yeah, so, and then what was another slight thing like this? We probably could do like another maybe in another episode, but like there are some really interesting like deep life history hypotheses suggested about like a deep sea hydrothermal vents, like where like that might be where eukaryotes originated. That might be how life survived during the cryogenian when the entire during snowball Earth when the entire planet was covered in ice sheets. Um, and so I think there's a lot of really interesting deep life history there that could be looked at.
Yeah, we could experiment that in another episode in the future.
All right, let's see what we got next.
We have the
Sperm
sperm
whale,
whale now.
dude.
I know you guys like the sperm whale.
I like sperm whales for a few reasons. I mean, they have an interesting fossil record. They're definitely macro predators in the fossil record as they are today. But what I think is cool, my favorite little fact about sperm whales, is their teeth are essentially vestigial. They don't need their teeth at all. Sperm whales are suction feeders. They have the craziest shaped mouth for what you would think a suction feeder needs, but they're suction feeders. And you know that because their teeth have been seen with like barnacles on them. Barnacles don't like to grow on surfaces that are too energetic, and so if their teeth are being used, a barnacle wouldn't be able to grow on their literal teeth. And then you get no, they don't really have wear on their teeth either. They're just sucking in squid all day. It's pretty interesting.
And
They
they
don't
only have teeth on the lower jaw, right? The upper jaw doesn't, which is different than,
got sockets.
Right. Yeah, they go into like little holes.
yeah, which is different than like some of the macro predatory sperm whales that we had in like the Neogene, like Leviathan. But yeah, they're pretty cool. And these are also I believe the second deepest diving mammal alive today.
Yep.
Yeah, I think their interesting fossil record of sperm whales as a whole also bumps them up a little bit from my paleontology perspective. So I think I can't put them in S tier. I think A tier is generous. I think they're a solid B tier.
I was
Hmm.
but like I think ARS is a good placement because I think they're really like this big the pinnacle of evolution. Um, Hyper specialized deep sea diving marine tetrapods
Yeah.
from like macroraptorial ancestry. Uh, I think that like that's just such like a feat of evolution that I think they're neat. I think they belong in ARS.
We should decide whether we like this one more than the beaked whales. I think that's ultimately going to place it because beaked whales, I have a feeling they're going to get bumped down to A by the end of this, and we got to decide whether we like beaked whales more or sperm whales. Personally, I
Yeah,
like beaked
we
whales.
have echolocation, and their echolocation is just, obviously incredible. And each one of their teeth is over 2 pounds each, which is something that is just crazy to me. But
The largest teeth of any animal that has ever lived was extinct sperm whale. It is Leviathan.
Yeah.
Is it Melvillei or Melvillei? I don't remember. But Leviathan
I believe.
has the biggest teeth of any animal that's ever lived, period.
Yeah.
wow. And
Yeah.
they're
So,
the most
Those things,
sexually dimorphic of all cetaceans.
oh, really?
Yeah, the males are way larger, like can be like 50% larger than the females.
Holy cow! I had no
How
idea.
big
Yeah.
do these things max out at?
Uh,
Um, I have no idea.
Big bulls, especially like whaling records, like 70 feet. Like I don't think you're going to find a 70 footer in the oceans today, but the whale, whalers, like late stage whaling, they were like measuring the things when they captured them, and I think those are like 70 feet.
and I would like to remind
Yeah,
you, you know what the next largest toothed whale is? It's the orca. I mean, these things among toothed whales are so crazy that they're up
yeah.
there in size.
It's
With the film,
Orcas predate on sperm whales, which is also interesting.
say what?
The
Orcas
babies.
predate
Yeah.
on, yeah, orcas predate on juvenile sperm whales.
the next biggest toothed whale is one of the beaked whales.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, duh. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. We're literally talking about how beaked whales get bigger than orcas. I just forgot. See, I forgot because beaked whales, no one even thinks about them, dude. They're so rare. Anyway, I'm just saying, I'm a fanboy.
Yeah, I think these are worthy of an A tier.
I would
I
say A.
feel, I would feel weird putting them in B tier with their two biggest food sources. Or
Yeah,
not,
I think
I
that's
guess
I like
biggest
that
by
idea.
size.
yeah. I say A tier. Solid
Yeah,
A tier, boys.
sperm whale and beaked whale can hang out in nature pretty well.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that is reasonable.
Should we put beaked whales? Should we downgrade them to A tier already, or should we wait until there's conflicts?
Wait,
I think we can wait until we have a contender.
Okay.
I have a contender in my head.
I think of
Uh,
another. I can think of another contender for S tier already as well. I'm hoping you have it. It's not this guy. This guy is an A tier contender, dude. Goblin.
no. Okay. Yeah.
In my opinion, Mitsukurina, dude. I really like Goblin Sharks because of my. I would say again biased due to my paleontology perspective for Scapanorhynchus. Scapanorhynchus, Goblin Sharks as a whole, they go back a long time, at least in the Cretaceous, and they weren't always deep sea dwellers. You have Scapanorhynchus in a lot of shallow water deposits, and obviously very derived, interesting sensory adaptations in their face with that giant snout that shoots out. And I like that the extant goblin shark is kind of the last holdout of this extremely successful lineage in the Mesozoic. So, because again, if I'm going fossil hunting, be it in Texas or Lebanon or wherever, the most common shark tooth I'll find is probably Scapanorhynchus in most strata. Like this thing, goblin sharks were incredibly successful, and so that the fact that we only have one left today just makes it this icon, in my opinion. I think goblin sharks are great, and they have a large cultural impact as well. They've gotten a lot of people interested in deep sea.
Mhm.
Yeah. And they're really cool. These are lamniform, so these would be in the same order as like your great white shark, your basking shark, things like that. And yeah, I've even found a Scapanorhynchus tooth in Arizona, so that shows how prevalent these things are.
Or
Um,
were, and we just have one, and it's rare. I mean, it's so cool.
so it was the Mitsucrinids, they basically sought the deep sea as a sort of like last safe hold
Yeah,
for that entire family because like you said before, these things inhabited much shallow waters throughout the Cretaceous, especially with Scapanorhynchus, but now the deep sea is basically a refuge for them.
yeah. The idea of an endling, the last of its kind, is so romantic. I find it hard to put this in a low tier.
And
With
have you seen how fast their jaw protrusion is
Yeah,
when
I've
they hatch?
seen those slow mo videos as well. I mean, they're very explosive. They
Like
can
lightning.
Yes, yes, yes. And like to anyone watching this right now, see how its jaws are out? That's how it is like when it's already protruded. It doesn't protrude anymore. It's usually sitting back in its face as you would expect from a typical shark, and then it just shoots them out like poof. And highly avertible jaws. And that's a cool feature, but as we've discussed, other sharks also have that feature. I just think with the historical, like prehistoric perspective, the goblin shark is like way up there, and culturally as well, like with the influence it's had on human society, it's also way up there.
I
You also
like them a lot, but I would say solid B maybe for
A
me.
B
B or
tier.
A. Yeah, A or B. I mean,
B is the
as far
lowest.
as
Possibly be okay with it. Like I'm gonna say A. I
I
don't know,
would agree with A.
but
It
I'm gonna
hurts
say
my soul thinking about it in a B tier.
I'm thinking
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just like fossil record wise and just yeah, it is kind of romantic, this like last of its kind and its family and
yeah.
Okay, I've got a question. Did these guys have like a more like they're only deep sea today, but I'm assuming that they're a lot more diverse surface dwelling types in
In the Cretaceous, yes, absolutely. Yeah. These were not restricted to the deep sea at all during the Cretaceous.
Yeah, and there's I guess contestable genera within the Paleogene as well for other mitsocrinids too, and those wouldn't have been found in deep sea either, or at least not exclusively in deep sea. So like some of the contested taxa would be Anemotodon, Stratolamia, but there's a lot of debate as to whether those would have been like actual mitsocrinids or if those would have been something else like a carchariid or a completely different thing. So yeah,
What's nice is that there's not that debate in the Cretaceous.
yeah.
Lebanon has Lagerstätte that perfectly preserves the most beautiful, crazy looking goblin shark fossils ever. And those giant sensory snouts that they have, those giant rostrum that protrude out the front of their face, even bigger in the Cretaceous taxa. Like they're huge. So we have no doubt about if it because you get people who are like, oh, how can you classify shark teeth? You only have the shark teeth. Well, we have no doubt about them being around in the Mesozoic at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so then my other thing is that I do not understand how this thing is going to be lower ranked than that dogfish that we looked at.
I also kind of don't understand, in my opinion. Like the dogfish is cool, but I'm biased because of the fossil record implications, and
yeah.
I think this should be at least as high as the dogfish. But I do think the dogfish probably needs to get a lower rank. I do want to put this in A, and the dogfish being an A, I can live with. But then I think A would be filled up. So
Let's see. We
Yeah,
have
what else do
room
we
for
got?
two A's. We have room for one S.
I think we need to bump the dogfish down. But then we won't be able to bump the beaked whale down. I think some painful decisions are going to be made.
So where are we going to put
Hmm.
this one for now?
It needs to be at least an A, in my
I'd
opinion.
say A.
A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd be fine with mm, bumping the anglerfish down, maybe.
Yeah, that's fair.
We have
Anglerfish.
one slot left in the A and the S. This is gonna get heated because we have some really cool ones coming up.
Yeah, we do.
You guys
This
want to
is the most adorable octopus that I've ever seen, by the way.
Dumbo octopus, is that what you call it again? What's it called?
I don't know if
No,
it's
this
a
isn't a
common name.
Dumbo. I don't know if we have a common name for these guys. There's not a lot known about them.
It's just a purple octopus with big old eyeballs. It is adorable, but that's all it has going for it. And now with how heated this competition is going,
Wrong.
it
Wrong.
I don't know. I don't know.
The coolest thing about these guys is that they have the longest recorded brood time for any animal. Like, I think it was observed, like, the female was observed taking care of its eggs for over like 4.5 years.
Oh, that's
There was an episode, I think, on ologies. I think it was like Octomom or something, but Mbari, the Monterey Bay, uh, like deep sea folks recorded this, like kept visiting them year after year. And it was sad because she just kept deteriorating more and more and more because like after they lay their eggs, a lot of times the females just undergo zero self-care.
yeah.
They a lot of times won't even eat or anything. So she just basically slowly starves to death while taking care of these eggs.
So they're adorable and they're good moms.
Good moms. Yeah. But that's I think one of the most notable things, just the fact that how long one has been found sitting and taking care of her eggs.
As much
I'm
of a
not
good
gonna go
mom as
there.
it is, I don't know if we can put it past a D tier based on how heated this list is gonna get.
I agree. I think it should be in the
Yeah.
half, but the top of the lower half.
Yeah, I'd say we need it. We need something for the D, and apparently none of us are invertebrate people.
I mean, I love cephalopods, dude. If there was any, I don't know if there are any deep sea cuttlefish. I don't know about that, but if there were any cuttlefish in this list, I would fight for like A tier at least. But yeah, no, I think this has to be a little bit lower than what's coming.
Yeah,
You
agreed.
agree, Cole?
And what's it called? No one knows what this is called. Here, let me try and read it
I
out.
don't know a common name for these guys.
Granulodon boreopacifica.
One more time.
Granulodon boreopacifica.
Yeah. All right. Granulodona port pacifica. For people who want to Google it that are listening. All right.
All right, so oh yeah, there we go. Our next one's a Greenland shark.
Ooh,
Bro, Greenland sharks
good
lived
one.
in my head rent free for years as a kid. These need to be way up there. And the fact that what's the longest living one? Like 500 years or something like that? A
Yeah, so I
vertebrate?
think it was like a mean age of like 392 plus or minus like a crazy number. So like it's between I believe 250 to over 500 years estimated.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They don't reach sexual maturity until they're 150 years old, so that's
Yeah,
yeah,
they've been
they have to
extremely
wait a
slow.
long time.
What's
Yeah, they have an extremely slow metabolism. And what's cool too is they have these cocopod parasites a lot of times on their eyes, which impair their vision, but they don't really use their eyes so much anyways.
yeah,
Yeah,
most
these
of them
get
are
huge too. These
but,
go over 20 feet long.
but
Yeah.
apparently they can do like quick bursts. So we're talking, sorry for anyone who's listening, this is a Greenland shark. We're talking about Greenland sharks in case we didn't mention that. And yeah, I think they aren't just I mean, I know they fall into the sleeper sharks, but they can do quick bursts of speed too, can't they, Ben?
I'm not sure if it's ever been actually recorded. I think there's still a lot of mystery as to how these things actually hunt. We've seen some weird stuff in their gut contents, like reindeer carcasses, horses.
Well,
Yeah, I'd say
Moose.
they get
Yeah,
too, right? Like
bear.
grab seals, so they got to be fast enough to get a seal.
I,
yeah.
I forgot where I heard it, but a long time ago when I was a kid, I heard of this story, and I don't know if it's true or not, of a guy that was walking around in the Arctic and a Greenland shark was just tracking him, just like following him as he was going. I mean, that could be a wives' tale, but just that story stuck with me, and I found it so fascinating.
I think any respectable gentleman of good taste, any shark connoisseur, one of their favorite sharks has to be a Greenland shark. I think
Mm.
these deserve to be way okay. If we're putting so many other sharks high up in the list, this should be really high up in the list. Greenland
These
sharks,
these are over 20-foot long dogfish. These are also
Yeah.
swallow So this is in the same order as that viper dogfish. And they have interlocking lower jaw teeth that are basically like a saw as well. It's really cool.
and the
Yeah,
fact
so the way
that
they determine like the age, sorry, the way they determine like how that these guys live so long is actually radiocarbon dating the crystals in their eyes. Because I mean, if we're not around for when a shark is born or something like that, it's really hard to like growth rings. People like have tried to like, age a lot of animals by, but that's really, really not an exact science. But the way they did it with Greenland sharks is radiocarbon dating the crystals in their eye lenses.
that's so cool. I think
It's
these
so cool.
like if there weren't so many animals, if this came earlier, it would be without argument an S tier for me. I could
I'm
see
still
eight
thinking S.
too. Huh?
I'm still thinking S. And if something has to get demoted for it, I
The
think that's fine. But I see an S tier with it.
I think S tier.
I
Yeah.
would demote the oarfish. I'm sorry. I think they're really, really cool. I love them, but I
We
don't
have
know. This
spot for
is a
one more
pretty.
S tier.
I think what we need to do, I think what we need to do before we demote any S tiers is we need to demote a few A tiers to make room in A for the S demotions. And I think it
Mm.
would have to be who's this guy in the middle here? Middle of the A tier. Oh, beaked
That's
whale.
a beaked
Fuck.
whale.
Maybe what's the name of the reverse anglerfish?
The black dragonfish.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that might I could see that in B, personally.
Do
yeah,
we
I
want
could
to
see
start
that in
demoting
B
now?
too. I
I
could see
think
that in B.
demote a black dragonfish to B, and then demote one of the S tiers into A, so we can make room for another S tier.
We have our first demotion. What you're thinking the oarfish for the S tier to demote?
I know Jared would disagree with me on that.
I kind of think about the viperfish as well. Um,
Yeah, I'm thinking viperfish, honestly. There's
yeah,
some,
demote viperfish. Viperfish can go as low as B in my opinion. I'm a little bit jaded to big tooth things in the deep ocean now because they all have big teeth. So
Well, I feel like a lot of what's cool with the viperfish is cooler with the viper dogfish.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we're
Yeah,
putting
so
viper.
I'm fine with an A tier for the viperfish, and that one might even get demoted down again.
Dang, that's rough.
Well,
But
the
yeah,
fish that I want to be in the S tier has everything all rolled into one and then some. So, yeah.
nice. So we still have five in our S tier. We still have five in our A tier. So we've room for one more for both. Our B tier is filling up, which means we're going to start having some F tiers, and that's where we're going to have some struggles to make.
Mm,
Let's
we'll
see.
see.
The next one is the Balbo saber-tooth.
It looks like a sardine with big teeth.
And no one knows that much about these guys. I mean, even their Wikipedia is just tiny.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna say off
these
the bat, unless Cole has a different opinion because he hasn't said anything yet, we can put this thing at least on D. Like
to
I'm
me,
getting
this looks a lot like an Encodus. It looks a lot like the Cretaceous
it
saber-tooth.
does. It does, but
It
that's just
does.
convergence, you know? That's just
Mhm.
convergence at this point. I don't know if they're
I think
related.
they're in the same order, actually.
Oh, are they? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
But I mean, then again, we can't rule out convergence or if these are somewhat related, like if it's plesiomorphic traits. I have no idea. But I mean,
And
it's a boring fish with cool looking teeth.
yeah, and I'm
Exactly.
kind of jaded to Encodus even because when I see Encodus teeth in the field with how frequent Encodus was, I'm not gonna lie, I don't even pick them up half the time. Like, yeah,
You should
I have
pick them up and send them to
so
me.
much Encodus material, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I can
D
put it in F
I'd
tier.
say D or
F
F.
F. Let's go F.
F.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Cole,
bud.
Cole's in the bathroom, I think. I think he would agree with an F tier on it.
Yeah, I let's yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we need more discussion too, because holy cow, we've been
There
going.
isn't much to discuss on it.
Yeah, we've been going for like 2.5 hours. I didn't even realize. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a fun
That's a lot of
conversation.
animals.
It is a fun conversation. I need to make a TikTok video today, though. I'm gonna run out of time, but I'm good for now. We don't have to rush.
All
I'm
right.
engaged in this.
This one is wild. The
Oh,
jagged head Gurnard. So this is a fish.
and it walks, right? It has modified pectoral fins that allow it to walk on the bottom, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Yep.
Dude,
This thing reminds me a lot of like what placoderms would look like. This thing is
Mm.
armor plated. I didn't even know about this till relatively recently, and it's just crazy looking.
Yeah,
I'm a
I don't know much about these guys either.
I'm a fan of really derived when something takes something like a fin and then does something that it's not supposed to do with the fin. That's really
Hmm.
cool. I like the fact that it walks. I like the fact that I can't even tell that's a fish. If I was an alien and I pulled up to Earth and I saw one of these things, I'd probably step on it, like in fear. It's scary.
Yeah.
Like
This thing really does look like it belongs in the Paleozoic.
I can't even
Yeah.
describe. Like to someone who's not watching, I can't even describe how it looks. Imagine the front of its body looks like a crustacean, and then it has this long, skinny tail shooting out the back, and it has two spiky little legs below this crustacean-like body. It looks more like a crustacean than a fish.
Yeah. And underneath it has barbels and then it has like those little walking fins. are pretty cute.
How much space do we have in C tier right now? In B tier?
B tier, we have two. I think that this thing could be a B or even A tier. Just how
I think
weird.
B. Yeah. It should be in the top half because it's just extremely derived, highly specialized animal. I am a fan of that kind of thing. And I'm
Mm.
not gonna lie, Ben, this is gonna break your heart a little bit. I think we kind of low key need to make room in B. I think more things are gonna get put into B. And to
Mhm.
make room in B, I think maybe we should move down Hexanchus. I'm not sure.
That is blasphemy.
Like
Yeah.
I think Hexanchus might because Hexanchus has its dentition going for it, to be honest. And there are lots of
Yeah.
things crazier dentitions. So
But
Hexanchus,
Hexanchus gets big. You
yeah,
like
but
big
like
things.
so do oarfish, so do other things. I think Hexanchus and C is like fair.
So
But
you're
let's
thinking
wait for
about
Cole to
kicking
chip
out
in on it.
Hexanchus and B to give us this thing for B.
Yes, yes, the thing's awesome. It just scuttles around, dude. But I don't know. Hexanchus is really cool. So if
What do
this
you
gets
guys think?
if
I would
this
never bump Hexanchus for
I think
this
one of the
thing.
squids would have to go.
No, I think we could put this little thing in C, but that's like uncomfortable in C. Like it deserves higher. It's our underdog. I think C is a good
Mhm.
spot, but absolutely no lower than C.
I think it is an
C would
underdog.
be the lowest for me.
What do you think, Cole?
Yeah, I think C.
C?
It's okay. I don't think any of them are gonna watch this either. So
That picture, like the one that you got on screen,
Huh?
I would think that was a prop from the movie and not like a real animal.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it is. It looks like an AI generated image, like
yeah,
those type of animals.
vampire squid. Um,
These things are pretty interesting.
what do they have going about him?
Here, let me get my
A
notes.
lot.
Yeah.
They have the largest eye to body ratio of any animal,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and they are bioluminescent. Like their whole like underside is bioluminescent.
So these things are interesting because these aren't actually squid.
Oh
The-
yeah.
These are these would have been more closely related to octopus than squid. And what's really fascinating about them too is that they have these two long retractable filaments. So these are detrivores, even though they call them the vampire squid. If you look, those like ear-like projections, those are fins for it to help with swimming. And what's really fascinating is they found recently in the Bear Gulch, Lagerstätten, they found a what's it called?
I
They
think I
found a vampiropoda, which would have been a clay that contains the vampire squids along with the octopus. This would have had, they found one that had 10 arms, which would help indicate that those filaments that are on the vampire squid would have been highly derived arms
wow
compared to all octopus, which would have had just 8 arms.
wow
Their obvious name.
that is really cool. And one being found in Lagerstadt is really cool. I'm
So this wouldn't have been a vampire squid itself, but this would have been part of the lineage or in the clade that contains all of the octopus, the vampire squid, and then these stem vampiropodas.
I think this we can characterize this podcast as like a paleontology podcast first, and then marine life second. And because it has a cool fossil record, and we can make those, we can have those insights about its arms.
Well, another interesting thing about these two is this is the only member of its order that is alive today
Oh,
that we
another
know.
endling, another endling. I don't think I'm
They
using.
also don't have ink sacs, which is really unique for squid and octopuses. And instead they have they can release like clouds of like bioluminescent mucus, which is really cool.
Dude, that's crazy. I think, dang, this competition is so stiff. Let's see what room we have in the ranking system. Cole, what do you think?
Yeah, we needed some
I want to.
crappier animals.
I think I think B tier is fine for
I'd
it.
put it in B.
I think B is also good. Yeah,
I agree. Those ones are actually really fascinating. I'm usually not fascinated by cephalopods, but that one was interesting.
I love stuff.
Yes, it's very unique.
Haha.
Oh, dude, I love Megachasma, dude. And my one of my top shark teeth that I want to find so badly is pseudo Megachasma.
Mm.
That was described. Who you described it? Shimada, right? Yeah, Shimada. Kensu Shimada in 2015. He described pseudo Megachasma. It's the earliest known. I don't know if it's the earliest known filter feeder, but it's the earliest known megamouth shark. Period, and that comes from the Cenomanian. So this thing's like 95 million years old. Um, and its teeth morphologically are ascent. I can't really tell the difference between them and a modern megamouth tooth. They look so similar. And megamouths, the fact that they're only discovered in what, the 70s?
Mhm.
75, I think
Yeah,
was when they were first yeah, one was like entangled in an anchor off
yeah,
Hawaii.
What's
yeah,
crazy too is that it's not like it's a small animal either.
yeah,
Like these things, these are one of the larger extant sharks, and these are filter feeders. I think they average at what, like 17 feet or so.
Yep.
Yeah. And these are also lamniform, so these would have been in the same order as great whites and all of that. Their teeth are highly reduced, but what's fascinating about their teeth is the earliest megachasma teeth that we know of. They're found in the Epresian, so the early Eocene. They have a sand shark style tooth morphology, which is really cool. So
mm.
you had lateral cusplets on them, and yeah, these are wild animals. I personally also would put these in an S or an A tier.
I agree. I like them almost as much as a Greenland shark.
Yeah, I like them as much, if not more, than Greenland sharks. And so they have that like white band that's on like on their mouth, on their jaw, and for a really long time they thought that was bioluminescent, but like to attract um prey into their mouth, but they still are kind of thinking that it is some kind of light reflective feeding mechanism aid.
Mhm.
Um, which it just makes them look even sillier, though. It looks like they have this big, goofy row of human teeth up there.
They also have one of the most fitting names of the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not even as big as the basking shark. The
Huh?
mouth is.
It's not as big as the basking shark. It's the smallest of the three filter feeder sharks.
Which is another cool thing. I'm so used to giant filter feeding sharks. Let's get a small one.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not small,
Yeah.
but like still, I think it's an S tier animal personally. If we have to round out S tier, I'm willing to kick out other animals from S tier to keep a megamouth up in S.
I'm fine with the megamouth S tier. Let's line it up with sharks, yeah.
Okay.
If you were to
Let's
show
get
a picture of a megamouth and a basking shark and say, okay, guess which one's the megamouth? I'd guess wrong.
Yeah, true.
they both have big mouths. Which I mean is necessary because they're filter feeders. And it's beneficial for filter feeders to get large so that this way they can filter out large amounts of food.
Yep.
So our S tier is filled up.
For
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
What we got next?
The northern upright
Okay.
moose jaw.
This is future S tier fish right here. It is the coolest fish in the ocean for a billion reasons. It is believed to be one of the only fish that can see red, which, as we know, red in the ocean is extremely rare because of, just how light moves through the ocean. So you can see, this isn't a great photo where you can really see the photophores, but it has a giant photophore right beneath each of its eyes, which glows red. And then behind that, it has photophores that glow green. So not only does it make red light, it makes two different colors of bioluminescence. And so that red light basically acts like a headlamp. So as they're cruising through the water, They can see what's in front of them, but other animals can't see them. So, and they're ultra black, like we've talked a lot about with these deep sea fishes. Why they're called a loose jaw is that they lack a buccal membrane, so they don't have that flap of skin under their jaw. So imagine just having like no skin like underneath your jaw, and that makes it so they can sling their jaws out so incredibly far. And so they've also, what's interesting with them is a lot of deep sea fish have more so eat like other small fish and things like that, such as myctophids or bristlemouths and things like that. But these guys have evolved to eat copepods because their field of vision is so short, with just being seeing that red light. They're looking for things that are pretty slow moving. So like copepods kind of just drifting around in front of them are nice, easy prey for them. And there's, I think, one paper that says that they think some of their bioluminescence comes from the um, prey of the copepods. So basically, they're getting that through their food. Also, these guys don't have humongous teeth. So, Jared, I know you're sick of large teeth. These guys don't have very large teeth, but their teeth have really large pulp cavities, which make them super duper crystal clear. So this guy, it's just this perfect predator where it's completely invisible in the water. And they're not very big fish. They're about this big. But they just have so many unique attributes, especially that red bioluminescence, which there are very few animals that have red bioluminescence. It's really most common for bioluminescence to be green or blue.
I'm a fan of that red light
Oh
uh
yeah.
spotlight that they have. The fact that they can use it and other animals can't see it, that does bump it into the upper tiers for me. Um, I don't know if it's we gotta like evaluate what's in the S tier and decide if this is.
There are currently 3 sharks in S tier, 4 sharks in S tier.
I would
Perfect.
knock out the oarfish
I kind of
easily for
agree at
this.
this
Yeah.
point. I kind of agree. Oarfish are so cool, but like
Yeah.
this
Okay,
So do
fish
we think that the oarfish would be better off lower than the stoplight loose jaw?
probably.
I
But
think, but we got a bunch of sharks out of S tier. There are 4 sharks in S tier. So I understand Morpheus has got to get.
Because sharks are awesome.
Exactly.
I think
uh,
this fish not being S tier, just with all of its wacky, perfect deep sea adaptations, would just be a crime. Just and that photophore, where that red light comes from, it's just gigantic. It's so
Hmm.
big. It's just ginormous photophore. It's
here's what
so
I'm thinking.
cool.
Here's
What?
what I'm thinking. We need to move something out of S tier into A tier, but we also need to move something out of A tier and lower. I think the viperfish should get lower than A tier. I think viperfish is okay in B. And we can figure out B later. But like the viperfish doesn't have much going for it if we really think about it. So I think if we got the viperfish lower, then we can move either the oarfish or what's that third one again?
This one, the frill shark?
Oh, that's a frill shark. Sorry, it's like kind of small. I think either the oarfish or the frill shark can move lower into A, and the viperfish can move into B.
I
Maybe.
think it should go lower.
The
I'd
viper?
What?
be okay with that. I'm
Yeah.
all for moving the oarfish, personally.
Okay.
Why is it?
Sorry, guys.
No, that's fine. I agree that Orpheus should be bumped, but I think we got to get rid of a shark too.
I'm having an issue. There we go. So we're thinking the viperfish down here. And what did we say was the one from the S here we're moving?
Oarfish.
A.
Oarfish.
Okay. And then this one is the stoplight. So we move this one
Oh,
My
yeah.
S.
prince, my beautiful prince, the oarfish, is fallen.
Yep.
They are beautiful, and they do kind of look like princess. Oh, God, I love Mel. I love Stoplight Loose Straws so much.
Our next one is super weird too. This is the Pacific barrel-eye fish. So if you see those two things where like the eyes would be, those are actually its olfactory organs. And then its eyes are up here. These green domes on the top of its head that's transparent, those are its eyes. And apparently when it's consuming its prey, its eyes can shift from the top of its head towards the anterior of it, which
Wow.
I find really weird.
And
They're
like I
very
would
strange.
point out that that clear dome over those green eyes of it, that I mean, that's still part of its head. Like it's just it has this watery forehead that allows the eyes to like out from the forehead. It's the most unusual. If you've never seen one of these things and you're trying to imagine it right now, you're wrong. Like you cannot act like you can't compare this to anything else that exists. I don't know of any other animal that does this. I don't know much about deep sea organisms, so maybe I'm wrong, but that is the most unique eye adaptation I've ever seen. If we found fossils of this thing, we'd have no idea how to reconstruct it. Like this
Yeah.
does deserve a high tier. I was hoping you were going to bring in the Pacific barrel eye fish because
Mhm.
I mean, what on earth? What on earth? I mean, is there anything else that looks like that?
Nothing that I can think of. And they can move those eyes. They can see in front of them and above them. And they can basically hover motionless because of those really large pectoral fins, which is really interesting as well.
I think these are. Ah, if this was in the beginning, I'd also call them S tier. Cole, what do you
This
think?
is so hard.
How large is this creature?
They're
Very small.
Very small. All right,
Very small.
because big equals cool. So,
I think it could go in A tier.
yeah, no lower than
Yeah.
A. I'd rather kick something else out of A tier, personally.
Our A tier is completely filled. Our S tier is completely filled. Our B tier is completely filled.
Well,
Yeah.
let's think about what things we can move down from B tier.
I
Person,
say I say we look at what else we have and move stuff if we need to.
okay, sounds good.
Yeah, there's a couple things that are going to be really hard to not have be high up there. These
So
guys I
here's
don't feel
the
super
bean sawtooth eel.
attached to.
Bean.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
It's this basically just looks like a needlefish. It's just a long eel with a pointy head.
Pretty much.
All right.
I
Boo.
think I think
Yeah,
this one would be
they're all
okay.
right.
I think an F would be fitting for it based on
F.
our other contenders.
I
Me and
wouldn't mind putting them in F, honestly,
me and my
just to
homies
give
ate
some
Is there
space.
all
anything
the eel.
interesting about them?
I mean, they're fish. It's very cool. I mean, eh, I'm fine with them being an F.
Bean sawtooth eel slander.
Sorry, guys.
This one is an interesting eel though. The pelican.
Ooh, yeah.
I like
They
these as
are.
these made a big influence on my burgeoning 6-year-old brain. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Big mouth.
Their eyes are so itty bitty and they're like at the very tip. So what looks like the top of their jaw, their eyes are at the very tip of them. And they can like inflate that mouth to make it look like they're just a balloon. They can look so, so, so big and they can eat things that are really large too because they're have a very stretchy stomach.
The pelican eel. Is there anything there like are there any differences between a pelican eel and a gulper eel, or are those the same thing?
They're the same.
Okay, it's a gulper
Yeah.
eel. Um,
I think it's really a cool animal. I personally see it as a B tier.
if
I
B
I
would
can't
showed
really
up,
see it lower than B.
Yeah, they are really, really fascinating.
I
Their jaw is like a quarter of its entire body length. And they're so fragile. It's crazy. When I've held these specimens, you just feel like you can just you can just snap them like so easily.
Hmm.
I think C personally. I'm not compared to the other deep sea organisms. like deep sea organisms as a whole among animals are S tier animals, right? Because of how unique they are. But within deep sea organisms, I'm not that surprised by them. Like I expect them to be really unusual, and I expect them to have
Mm.
a mouth and be very delicate. So
So you're thinking a C on it.
I'm
That's
personally. I mean,
Wow.
there's no way I can say like it doesn't have a lure, but it does have a big mouth. These other things that we have in higher tiers at least have. I mean, it's not their mouths aren't that big, but they have other things going for them. They'll have a lure or something, you know. So
what do you
You're a
think?
tough sell.
yeah,
What do you think, Cole?
I think they're my favorite of like the disgusting little gremlins of the. I'd like them to be pretty high, but like I also don't feel super strongly about it.
there's
Hmm.
absolutely no way that we can rank it higher than a barrel eye fish. Like in my opinion, the barrel eye is my favorite of the disgusting little gremlins, as you worded it. So um, it absolutely cannot be A. So I can see it being I could see it being B, but we'd have to move something out of B. And I'm not gonna lie, like this poor viperfish started in S tier. If we had to move something out of B, it'd be the viperfish. Like the viperfish doesn't really impress me that much anymore. It just yeah, big teeth
It
is it.
started out in the list impressive, but then when you start looking at how weird other things are,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be okay demoting it to C
Yep.
for
I
the
agree.
pelican eel.
I agree.
And they're very common too, you know.
Yeah.
Mm.
All
Like
right.
they've been yeah, I'm down with that.
Poor viperfish.
Right, we only have a few
Yeah.
ones left. Let's see, this one is freaky, the Pompeii worm.
Here,
Mm.
F tier. Get it off my screen. I don't want to look at it. Sorry.
Yeah, they can tolerate, I think right now it's like the highest recorded temperature of any animal. Like their heat tolerance is just insane.
The Pompeii worm. What are all these little bristles on their body for?
I think most so these guys I think another common name is bristleworm which they have, you know, in shallow water, like pretty much a lot of the polychaetes have bristles on their body. But I know these guys are also interesting because they have like I think a layer of like bacteria covering their skin, which might also serve as some kind of protectant from the extreme temperatures.
And these tentacles on their face, are those tentacles for feeding? Okay,
Yes.
interesting. So they just have high heat tolerance and unusual ornamentation. But let's be real, a lot of worms have unusual ornamentation. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I mean, I think their big claim to fame is really just that heat tolerance, which is pretty impressive and, you know,
it's not an
but
Yeah.
I'd
So
I'd say solid D.
D
yeah, I
two.
think D too.
I could put in D. I mean, it's an invertebrate, so fitting place.
Yeah, sorry, invert. We just apparently don't like the spineless guys.
Here's another invert, the sea pig.
Let's
They're
see.
so cute. The sea pig.
Scotoplanes globosa.
They're so they're sea cucumbers. Like, oh, now this is another one I looked into. They're sea cucumbers, um, which are of course echinoderms. Most echinoderms have, like starfish and such, have pentamural symmetry. These guys don't. They got bilateral symmetry on the rest of the sea cukes. Found at depths of 3,900 to 16,000 or 16,000 feet. Like all sea cucumbers, they also breathe through their anus. So don't try to think about that too hard. They
Mhm.
they're like cows or pigs, and they just like waddle across the seafloor grazing. They've got like all echinoderms, they've got 2 feet. They've got which is like a hydraulic system. They don't really use muscles. They just aim water through their a vascular system within themselves to move things around with hydraulics instead of like muscle contraction. Um, They're 4 to about 6 inches long. They are particularly attracted to rich biozones like something like a whale fall. They can swim. They usually don't, and they're poisonous. And groups of them are known as a trawl. So a trawl of sea pigs,
Oh,
plural.
that's cute.
That must be
And
an
the groups can get
right?
huge, like I think as many as like 600 in some cases.
Yep. I think most are like 30 herds.
Yeah, that's more
So
common.
I have a question.
Yep.
What do these bring to the table that other sea cucumbers don't?
And they live really deep.
And
They're
that's
I think so. Yeah,
This thing looks like an alien though. Like this just looks straight up like something otherworldly.
they're
So
yeah,
I would
They're
have
the
to.
cutest sea cucumber, I would say, honestly.
are
that
like
is
purely developed and like derived and robust. They've got like longer limbs than the rest of their kin. Uh, and a really cool fact. My favorite fact was that they are used as shelters by juvenile king crabs.
nah.
Like they're like the paper I read described them as that 22% of sea pigs analyzed in our survey were attended to by a sea crab or by a king crab.
That's
Interesting.
cool.
I did not
Interesting
know that.
relationship. They're definitely not an F. I will
I
say.
I could see them as a B tier because they're just so weird looking.
I think you can see a king crab's legs sticking out from underneath this thing right now.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Well,
Those
is
are
that a is it an ophiuroid or is it a king crab?
I don't know.
I don't know. That's really tiny.
I think C personally. I would put it as higher in B, but like most of its cool traits that it has going for it are just traits of sea cucumbers in general. Like how it moves around. So the fact that it lives deeply and it has that symbiotic relationship is really cool, and that keeps it away from the bottom two tiers. But I do think C is like a comfortable spot for it personally. I could see it in B, but I feel like it'll get demoted later on if it's in B. I don't know.
I agree.
Yep.
You agree with C? What do
I
you think,
agree.
Paul?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. She's fine.
Let's go, dude. C's filling up. We might have to
He is
downgrade.
filled. We only have D's and F's.
Dude. Pause. To be honest, kid, can we just come to the consensus that low key viperfish might just be an F?
I don't think they can be an F. And I mean, I see at least one animal in our remainders that I'm happy being an F.
I think we'll have a few F's in the remaining ones. At least
Yeah.
I feel bad for the
Like
viper.
these guys, I don't care about them.
a southern elephant
But I
seal.
wouldn't consider them really a deep sea animal either.
I've seen
They
them in.
spend more time on land than like any other like pinniped.
Yeah, I mean, with bears, with the beaked whales, they're at least like aquatic animals, like fully aquatic. These guys are just posers. Like they don't belong in the deep sea. They're
In person, one thing that's surprising about them is they like fart like people do, like loud, blubbery farts constantly. And they're always fighting. But like if you're around a herd, it's just a constant, not a herd, but like a group of them, it's just a constant, just like all the time. They actually fart. It's the craziest thing. I think it was so funny. We saw Cambria in California. There's a beach there right next to Moonstone Beach, which is a beach that's just full of jade and moonstone. We went to go see that. That was cool. And yeah, they have a group there. They're returning to the west coast of the U.S. for the first time in ages. They were kind of driven away, but now that things are cleaning up a bit, they're returning. And among animals, really cool. Among deep sea animals, they're barely. I wouldn't call them a deep sea animal. Like they visit,
So
but
the thing,
whales when they die. So like I don't know.
well, what's interesting about them is that they have the longest or the deepest dive of any pinniped or of any non whale, basically. So they've been recorded to go down like 7,835 feet, which is considerable.
That's
And
actually
Yeah.
yeah, like that's deep. That's deeper than some of these animals on the list live. But I mean, they're also the largest pinniped, or I guess even the largest caniform alive today.
really
'Cause,
they're bigger than a walrus.
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah,
They're
these things get up to I think the longest recorded one was like over 21 feet long. And it was already skinned at the time and it weighed like 8,800 over 8,800 pounds.
things are hippo sized, like
They're
plus.
big,
They
yeah.
are big. Seeing them in person, they are pretty giant. Like
Yeah.
when the males are coming up to fight each other and they're like pushing their chests into each other, they're at least they're like bigger than in some cases than a grown man. Like their heads will be above you if they're like pushing themselves into each other and fighting like that. So I mean
Mhm.
they're very big, but among deep sea animals, even if there was nothing on this list, I would put them in the bottom two tiers.
So you're thinking F on
Agreed.
it?
You're talking about the northern elephant seal. The southern elephant seals are substantially larger.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
These
Yeah, the
are
northern ones
the
are big too.
largest.
I saw them in person and they're big.
Yeah, like another 20% on top of the northern elephant seal.
Wow. Um, yeah, F. D's fine too, but like I
Yeah,
feel like
sorry,
other
guy.
animals are more deserving.
Yeah.
We have a couple good ones left too. It's gonna be hard. These guys, for instance,
The
putting these
broad-nosed
guys low
chimera.
is
So these are actually chimeras are or the ratfish. They are considered to be sister to the true sharks and the rays. So if you look at a phylogenetic tree, these would all be within chondrichthys, the cartilaginous fish. However, you had the line of Euchondrocephali, which would have split off, and you had your things like Odestus, Helicoprion, Petalodus in the Paleozoic. But nowadays, the only order of euchondrocephalans that are alive today would be the chimeras or the ratfish. So the chimeriforms are the only ones alive today, and then this one has a really cool elongated rostrum, as you can see on there. They have fused teeth. They're fused tooth plates, which is really cool compared to like true sharks that you have teeth that are just they're like readily replaced throughout their lives as that's why you see so many shark teeth. You don't see as many ratfish teeth, at least in the Mesozoic and Cenozoic comparatively, and a lot of that is also because sharks kind of dominated the niches and the ratfish kind of like went on the back burner, especially after the Paleozoic, the end Permian mass extinction. But yeah, these are pretty cool animals.
I am biased towards them. I have found a fossilized ratfish tooth in Cenomanian strata of the
Mhm.
Cretaceous before, so that
In the
makes
Paleozoic, they're super common to find holocephalin teeth. I personally don't consider holocephali to be what's it called? To be the sister to the sharks and the elasmobranchs, I would consider Euchondrocephali as a whole. And the reason for that is because you had so much diversity before we get into the holocephalans that we can't really lump into holocephali. So I would have your Euchondrocephalans and then your elasmobranchs as your sister groups to each other. In the Paleozoic, you find tons of ratfish teeth.
I think these have an interesting fossil record, and if there was nothing on this list, I'd put them at B.
what I like about chimeras in general is like the sexually mature males have like this appendage on their head called a tentaculum, which it kind of looks like a lure, like an anglerfish lure, but it has spines all over it, and they use it basically to like it's covered in these really sharp spines. They use it to actually hold the female in place, which is not very nice, but it is a really, really insane looking appendage. And their lateral line system is also incredibly developed. Like their entire head, they look like Frankenfish when
Mhm.
you look at them up close. I always kind of joke that chimeras look like Zero from Nightmare Before Christmas, and it wouldn't shock me if Tim Burton was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a ghost dog and it's gonna look like this weird not shark or
Mhm.
ghost. But
Let's look at the tier list. I think something needs to get moved down to make room for this chimera.
yeah, I agree. Um,
Um, okay. Okay. I think we're gonna have to move some things out of C into D and F.
I think the
I'm fine with
Ichthyologist,
moving.
I think this isopod can go down to D.
Yep. And I think the viperfish can also go down to D or F so that we can move some things down from B. And if we
I
have
would
to
move
come down,
Idiocanthus maybe down to C.
Which
then
one?
The Idiocanthus, what
which one?
is, I forget what the common name of them is. It's a dragonfish, I think. The one that has a chin barbel.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah, right
thinking
there.
this would go to C?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm okay with that. Yeah,
Okay, so that gives us one B tier left. So we're thinking that the ratfish would go into B tier.
probably. Yeah.
I'm
It could
down with that. Yeah,
survive in C as well, but I think B is good.
I agree.
All right. So we only have three left.
It's raining man.
This one is so weird. The telescope fish.
I feel like it really gets its weird factor mainly from this photo. So this photo was taken by an ichthyologist. His name is Dave Johnson. This is actually a specimen from my museum collection. Um, they're very cool. I mean, they're kind of similar to barrel eyes in one way without having that like super alien looking, uh sack that's in front of them. They have, telescope vision as their name implies. Um, when they're specimens, something I really like about a lot of fish is their eyes really look like pearls, especially when their lenses are completely round. I always say this fish looks like Larry David, like this specimen at least. This is, I don't know how he'd feel about that, but I haven't asked him.
Hopefully, it doesn't watch us.
Yeah. It's
I
also
feel like
turned into hundreds of memes.
Yeah, this is another meme one. Not as prolific as the blobfish, but still up there.
I don't think it has much going for it apart from this picture, though. Like, what's unique about it? To be honest,
I kind of agree, honestly. I mean, it has massive meme factor, and Dave Johnson did a great job capturing it, making it as stupid looking as possible. But as far as cool deep sea fish go, there's a lot of really cool ones, even ones that we haven't talked about at all, like the hatchet fish. I would always love to talk about hatchet fish, but
all right,
Hmm.
mid. We'll put it in F.
An F.
Yeah, I think
You guys
so.
agree?
I'd say D or F, yeah.
What do you think, Cole?
That's fine.
F.
Oh, sorry, Larry.
All right, we have two left. We have the
This
Mariana
is a
snail.
tough one, putting this low. I will have a hard time with this going low.
The Mariana snailfish, Pseudodoliparis swirei. Yeah,
Hmm.
interesting. Okay.
So why would we have a
It,
hard time with this one low?
because it's the deepest known living fish. They
Ooh.
have found this at depths like something like 8,000 meters, like in
Hmm.
so yeah, these guys are just they feed primarily on small crustaceans. They have no natural predators pretty much because there's no large organisms down to the depths where they are that are going to be eating them. They're very gelatinous. I think just the fact that they can, survive at the depths that we don't normally think of as having, large vertebrates makes them pretty cool.
Plus, if we're ranking deep sea animals, this is
The
the deep
deepest.
sea animal. I would
Yeah.
say A tier if there was nothing in here. Let's take a
Yeah.
look at your list. What can move out of A tier for this?
We
Uh,
can move one of the whales, but I can't picture any of the whales being below B.
Yeah,
So
same.
that's them rearranging.
I think that fish with the clear head is kind of stupid, and you should go
Hey, hey, I'll fight you about that one. That one is insane. I love it.
literally empty head. There's the only thing in its head, it's empty head or its eyes. There's nothing.
People love people love the deep sea because of how alien the fish are, and this is the most alien looking fish there is on this list. Period. Like the empty headed guy, the barrel fish.
Yeah.
So I literally cannot justify. Like I'll stab you with a knife if you want to put that in B. Like this thing is way up there. The barrel fish, but I like our Mariana thing. I forget its name already. So
Yeah, it's snailfish. I would be fine moving the anglerfish, except for how iconic it is. You know, I love angler. It's just we have
What
a
about
lot
one
of
of
good
the whales?
animals. I'm
What
down with
about
moving a whale. I'm down with
yeah,
moving the beaked whale.
the
I'm
beaked
down
whale?
with moving a goblin shark. Beaked whale can go a
The
tad low.
goblin shark.
Goblin shark can go down to B, but no lower than B under any circumstances. Nah, I can't. Honestly, between
I say
goblin shark
we
or fish would go lower. I don't know. This is tough. This is
what
really.
I'm thinking is a sea pig will go down to D.
Yep.
So we have room in C.
Yep. I agree.
I'm down with moving the anoplogaster down to the fangtooth.
The fangtooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So that
agree.
would have to go down F.
I wouldn't put that necessarily in F, but
Let's take
So
for
we have
F,
room for a C. I think that we can move one of the
blobfish. Dude,
squids.
blobfish.
one
Blobfish.
of the squids. One of the
Blobfish needs
squids.
to go to F. It's taken up room in D. That's stupid. So is that clear octopus, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm fine with moving the blobfish down to
F.
straight down off the grid.
Yeah. Just like throw it,
Sorry.
guard it. Like,
All right. So we have C and D that both are open. And
okay,
so we want the Mariana snailfish to somehow be an A. So
let's get the
A or B. Maybe we should move one of the squid though. I mean,
yeah.
having like the giant and colossal like side by side. I mean, do we really need both?
Yes,
I'm
I agree.
fine with the
Put
squid
down.
going to C. The
To,
giant
to make
squid.
room, to
I
make
said
room.
see.
Yeah.
You think the which one?
Really see for colossal squid made for it.
Hmm.
Ooh,
I
What if we
prefer
did?
the colossal to the giant, but
I think that the ratfish could still live comfortably in sea. So
I
I
think
think we
we
could do
need to
that.
move the fangtooth lower. I think fangtooth needs to go in D, to be
Thank
honest.
I'll
you.
put yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so we have a
They're
B
so
and
cool
C.
looking, but other than that, like their giant teeth and, just
All
they're
right.
really cool looking, but that's all they got.
So then could we live with the snailfish in B tier? Or do we want it in A? Well, actually, no, we can move the whale now. Does that work?
Yeah,
The beaked
that
whale
works
to
That
great.
B?
works for me.
Dang.
The snailfish beat the whale.
Harsh standards. To put a beaked whale in C tier, if you told me that would be the case in the beginning of this, I'd like rage quit. But I can see it now. Like there's so many cool things down here.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
We're
I
on
just
our last one.
fish
We
is
have the Veronese long-armed squid.
Oh, yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
cool.
Do
Is
you
this the
think
one
that
that went really viral? It has those big boxy arms. No, I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah. I don't know
these
much
ones?
about these guys except that they use like muscle contractions to be able to control those like really long tentacles.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think this is a D tier. I don't think it deserves B or C. Let's take a look. Veronese long arm squid.
C. Put it in C.
You want to put it in C?
I mean, that's what that there's room for it. I mean, I
There,
probably get a
We
D.
can move stuff.
there is room for it. I'm trying to decide if something in D or F is cooler than it is, and I don't think so. Now that I'm looking, yeah, C's comfortable.
I'm
C's
happy with C.
Let's
yeah.
see. There we go. We have our tier list for creatures of the deep.
Let's go. That's crazy that we just spent 3.5 hours figuring that out.
It
It's okay. There's
was
worse things
hard.
off the, huh?
It was hard. This was
Yeah.
really tough.
We should do this with ancient animals, Ben.
I would be so down for that.
A tier list for like just Cretaceous taxa, Cretaceous marine taxa. Like I'd be sweating.
I would be so down to do one for the Cretaceous. But
Dang.
yeah, I think that this was a really fun list. You know, if you guys in the audience do not agree with our picks, comment below what you guys think you would rate your stuff. Yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. hit that notification bell. This list took a lot of time from us, and we did a lot of research in order to make this happen.
Well, y'all did.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you guys for coming on.